the mental transmitter of Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Teaching by Words and Deeds. Let me introduce myself. I'm Alex Zhang. You can just call me Alex. After a brief introduction, Alex shrugged and pointed to his eyes. As you can see, I'm a mutant too. My ability is an extremely hard body, well, about as hard as diamond. After a brief pause, Alex pointed to the young mutants before him and chuckled. Okay, now it's your turn. Introduce yourselves, and don't forget to introduce your abilities. Alex tried his best to ease the young mutants' nervousness, but unfortunately, the effect wasn't very satisfactory. Everyone looked at him with fear, cowering in fear, and no one stepped forward. After a long wait, a girl finally stepped forward. It was the sweet girl who had just spoken. Hello everyone, I'm Ialina. My talent is singing. Ialina glanced back at Alex nervously, her voice gradually lowering. I can hypnotize people through my singing. Oh, a mermaid princess, Alex clapped and said with a smile. I'll take care of it. From now on, your code name will be Mermaid. A flicker of surprise flashed in the girl's eyes, and she looked at Alex gratefully. Thank you, Mr. Alex. I love it. With Ialina's example, others immediately stepped forward to introduce themselves. Ialina then slipped back into the crowd, followed by a tall man with muscular torsos like a mountain. My name is Petrovich. You can call me Peter, or Iron Fist. Peter proudly waved his fist and said fiercely, because my fists are hard, like steel. With Ialina and Petrovich as role models, the atmosphere among the young people finally perked up. They came forward to introduce themselves, some proudly, some shyly. Everyone's abilities were varied and bizarre. Some made Alex's heart race, while others left him in a state of confusion. As you just heard, our abilities vary in strength, and not every mutant is suited to combat. After everyone quieted down, Alex's expression grew serious, and he looked at them sternly. So, the first thing you need to learn isn't attack, but defense. That way, you'll be able to protect yourself when you encounter danger. As soon as Alex finished speaking, a voice echoed through the crowd. Offense is the best defense, Ivan. Alex recognized him. He possessed a strong physique and agility, his abilities were 10 times his strength, and he looked incredibly rebellious. Come and fight me. Ivan, however, was a skilled and courageous man. He pushed aside the person blocking his way and took a few steps forward, his head slightly raised, his face filled with undisguised pride and confidence. I won't use my abilities, nor will I counterattack. I'll only defend. Alex didn't look at Ivan, his gaze fixed on the large crowd in front of him. Ivan will attack me. Watch carefully. Ivan was furious, feeling that Alex looked down on him. He secretly gathered strength, preparing to punch Alex away. Ivan was extremely confident in his abilities. He had once smashed a man's head with a single punch, and he had shattered countless pieces of steel. The fight quickly began. Ivan roared and charged without hesitation, without a trace of strategy. While Ivan's fighting skills were impressive, he was clearly a skilled fighter from the past. However, they seemed rudimentary compared to Alex, who could easily subdue him with a single finger. However, Alex refused to proceed. He wanted to fight Ivan, not just to teach him a lesson. Alex dropped his left foot and tossed his body to the side, easily dodging Ivan's punch. While casually dodging Ivan's punches, Alex kept on instructing the others, if you can't hit your target, no matter how strong your strength is, no matter how fierce your attack is, it's useless. Ivan wouldn't give in, nor would he give up so easily. A fierce expression flashed across his face, and he turned and attacked Alex again. After 10 minutes, Ivan angrily stopped attacking, pointing at Alex a few steps away and cursing, is it fun to keep running and dodging like this? For 10 minutes, Ivan barely even touched the edge of Alex's clothes, and the few attacks he managed were either blocked or parried by Alex, making it impossible for him to hide him at all. I can't attack, so of course I have to dodge. Am I supposed to just stand there and let you hit me? Alex spread his hands, a look of helplessness on his face. Ivan stood up straight again in a huff, waiting for Alex fiercely. No dodging now, attack too, are you sure? Alex looked at Ivan sideways with a strange smile on his face. Come on, Ivan roared again and attacked again. Alex smiled wryly and shook his head. He extended his right hand and lightly punched Ivan in the chest, near his neck. The punch was weak and slow, and the location of the strike wasn't a weakness. It wasn't a special move, just an ordinary punch. But Ivan couldn't dodge it. He was hit directly, and his whole body froze, as if he had been hit hard. He was completely frozen in place. Ivan looked down at the mark on his chest, then looked up at Alex with a look of disbelief. He remembered the punch Alex had delivered against the Red Devil earlier. The thought of that punch landing on him made Ivan tremble uncontrollably. If you want to attack, you must first learn to defend. Alex looked at the slightly dazed Ivan, his expression becoming serious. If you can't even defend, how can you attack? Alex and Ivan's fight was actually quite boring, and there wasn't much to learn from it. However, the transition between their offense and defense still deeply shocked the young mutants. Many were impressed by Alex and made up their minds to follow his advice and learn to defend well. Looking at the expressions on everyone's faces, although some people were still dissatisfied, Alex knew his advice was working. Everyone, take a break first. I'll teach you how to defend well later. With that, Alex immediately left the young people behind and slowly walked over to Emma. I didn't expect that you are so good at teaching students. Seeing Alex walking towards her, Emma came back to her senses, looked Alex up and down, and was very surprised. Very good, very good. Alex shrugged and thought to himself, after all, I have received more than 10 years of Chinese education. Everyone can imitate. Why did you stop suddenly? Emma didn't pay attention to Alex's expression. Her eyes were always on the young mutants who were still gathered there. She was very surprised. The teaching has been very good, and everyone is very motivated. Wouldn't it be better to do it in one go? Let them digest it. Alex pointed at the mutants who were gradually arguing. They have to understand this truth by themselves, so that I can teach smoothly. Emma turned her head to look at Alex, as if she understood, and said with some emotion, you seem to be more suitable to be a teacher than me. Chapter 102 Sudden Bad News. As the argument escalated, the young mutants unexpectedly engaged in a brawl. This frightened Emma, and she was about to charge forward, but Alex held her back. Don't worry, let them fight. Emma turned to look at Alex, stunned. Aren't you worried they'll get hurt? How will they get hurt with us here? Alex pointed at himself, then at Emma, and asked with a faint smile. Emma paused, still wondering, why. First, to dispel their arrogance. They're all mutants, and they all have some degree of confidence in their abilities. A fight will show them their strengths. Alex's face showed no sign of worry, a look of pure relief. Second, it'll let them truly understand what I'm saying. Then they'll know what to do. Half an hour later, the group finally stopped, each one bruised and battered, with few remaining unscathed. Are you done fighting? Alex walked over with Emma, his face expressionless. Everyone was so frightened that they were silent, not daring to answer. I've been watching, and you all fought pretty well, fully utilizing your abilities. Alex didn't criticize them. Instead, he singled out a few people and praised them highly. Colin performed very well. He's not very strong, and not very fast, but with his ability to transform, he managed to provoke fights with many people. At the same time, he used his ability to transform to dodge many attacks and fought all the way to the end. It was great. Colin smiled awkwardly when he heard this, and wanted to hide in the crowd, but was pushed out. Don't be embarrassed, your plan is very good, and the facts have proved it. Alex comforted Colin and said very seriously, battle requires not only force, but also wisdom. Apart from Colin, Adrian did it even better. Alex pointed to another thin, plain-looking young man. His defense was perfect. No one touched him in half an hour of fighting, but he killed 13 people. Everyone turned their heads to look at Adrian, their faces filled with shock. If Alex hadn't explained it, they wouldn't have known that this seemingly harmless young man was so powerful. After praising 7 or 8 people in succession, the young people relaxed and even felt a little complacent. But at this moment, Alex's tone suddenly changed, and his voice became very stern. However, there are also some people who performed very poorly, whether it is attacking or defending. They are very bad. First of all, it's the mermaid, Alana. Alex seemed to have forgotten his previous smile, and began to lecture with a stern face. Alana, do you remember your ability? Alana did not expect to be criticized. She was still in a daze. When she heard Alex's question, she nodded subconsciously and said, hypnosis. You still know that your ability is hypnosis? Alex was not polite at all. He asked several questions in succession, and Alana almost cried. Why didn't you hypnotize them at the beginning of the battle? If you sang and hypnotized them all, Would the battle continue? Would they still be injured? Looking at Ayelena's eyes with tears in them, Alex stopped and pointed the finger at Ivan. And you, Ivan, you are even more disappointing. Ivan lowered his head in shame. Halfway through the fight, he was forced to withdraw due to exhaustion. Your ability is 10 times the strength. Do you really have to use it all the time? Alex felt like a real teacher, scolding him fluently. Are you a pig? Don't you know how to hold back? Using 1 or 3 times the strength, isn't that enough? You insist on using 10 times the strength, exhausting yourself like a pig. You're stupid. Seeing everyone lower their heads unconsciously, Alex reiterated, you're all mutants. Whether it's defense or offense, you must make good use of your abilities. Without further ado, Alex began teaching, focusing on defense. He guided each student to find a defense that best suited their abilities. The day passed quickly, and after the class ended, Alex and Emma gathered together. Where are they all? Only then did Alex remember that, aside from the Red Devil at the beginning, Sebastian Shaw and the others hadn't been seen all day. Emma shook her head, confusion filing her slightly tired face. The next day, classes resumed, but Sebastian Shaw and the others still hadn't shown up, as if they had vanished completely. The third and fourth. It's been over half a month, and there's still no sign of them, Alex fretted, having pushed today's teaching onto Emma, leaving him feeling restless all day. Emma was incredibly happy after 2 weeks of teaching. Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club were completely forgotten, her heart completely focused on the young mutant. She nonchalantly replied, did you look for them at the bar? Yes, but no one. Did you ask your friends? Alex froze, mumbling, why didn't I think of that, before disappearing into Director Nick Fury's office at SHIELD headquarters. To Alex's surprise, there were several people sitting in the office, some Alex knew, some he didn't. Seeing Alex suddenly appear, many people were startled at first, then drew their guns and pointed them at him, their faces filled with deep hatred and a hint of fear. What happened, Nick? Alex didn't choose to flee. He turned to look at Nick Fury, then glanced at Carter and Natasha, his eyes confused and a little sad. Nick gestured to Alex to calm down, turned to look at the gun-wielding men, and waved his hand, saying, all of you get out. When no one moved, Nick became furious, slammed his hand on the table, and shouted, I told you to get out. Didn't you hear me? At that moment, everyone moved, sheathed their guns, and walked out of the office in an orderly manner. What the hell is going on? Alex sensed something was wrong from the expressions on Nick Fury and the others' faces, and a sense of inexplicable panic rose in his heart. Nick Fury sat down in a chair, toying with a pen. After a long pause, he spoke, Alex, humans are going to take action against mutants. Alex frowned, asking in disbelief, what do you mean? In view of the enormous threat posed by mutants, the U.S. government has announced a comprehensive arrest of all mutants within its borders. Nick Fury picked up a piece of paper from the table, glanced up at Alex, then lowered his head to read. Anyone who dares to resist will be killed without mercy. Why? Alex was confused. How could mutants become such a huge threat? Nick Fury said nothing, simply tossing a stack of documents in front of Alex. Take a look. Alex picked up the documents in confusion. After reading a few pages, he froze. He looked up at Nick Fury and said excitedly, impossible, absolutely impossible. 2 weeks ago, a Soviet military base was attacked by unknown individuals, and all 13,000 people on the base were killed. Natasha, who had been sitting silently nearby, suddenly spoke up. Alex turned around suddenly, looked at Natasha and said seriously, that base has captured hundreds of mutants for human experiments, and many mutants have been tortured to death. We know, Natasha nodded and said expressionlessly, but they don't know. Chapter 103 Humans arrive. They're not politicians or soldiers, Natasha continued calmly, ignoring the anger on Alex's face. They know nothing. They only saw countless humans die at the hands of mutants. Alex froze, staring blankly at Nick. With a hint of pity, he slowly asked, is there nothing we can do? Nick Fury sighed, shook the papers in his hands, and said helplessly, the mutants have been causing too much trouble lately, and the government can't do anything about it. Alex, you'd better stay in hiding. After spending a long time at SHIELD, Alex left with a dejected look on his face. Back at the training grounds in the Las Vegas desert, Emma was training the young mutants, aiming to hone and enhance their special abilities. After 2 weeks of training, the young mutant strength had significantly improved, and their mastery of their abilities had made significant strides. Alex stood by and watched quietly, his mind racing. He wondered what to do next. Was he really going to have to hide? After much deliberation, Alex realized that the mutants had no choice but to remain in hiding. If they didn't hide, being discovered would only lead to a difficult battle. Regardless of the outcome, the battle would be disadvantageous to the mutants. Defeat meant the mutants would die. Victory meant losses for humanity, even casualties. This would create a vicious cycle, deepening humanity's hatred of mutants. You've been dazed. What's wrong? Emma had suddenly approached Alex, nudged him, and asked in surprise. Alex regained consciousness and turned to look at Emma, only to find that her eyes hadn't left the group of young mutants. With a silent sigh, he said with a look of sorrow, "Humans are going to take action against the mutants. The arrest warrants have already been issued, they're going to." Emma had barely uttered a few words when she suddenly realized what was happening. She turned and looked up at Alex, shocked. "What did you say? The end of mutants is coming? If humans truly exterminated them?" Alex didn't believe they had any chance of survival. Mutants' abilities were indeed powerful, but many of them couldn't be used in combat. Furthermore, humans far outnumber mutants, and their technology poses an equal threat to them. Emma paused for a moment, then snapped back to her senses. She spoke excitedly, "With something this serious happening, where's Sebastian Shaw? Where's Red Devil? Where are they?" "I don't know. S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't have any news on them either." Alex shook his head, a look of helplessness on his face. Emma cursed profusely, then took a breath before asking, "So what do we do now?" "I'm going to take them to the Savage Lands," Alex relayed his newly devised idea. The Savage Lands, isolated from the rest of the world, would undoubtedly be the best place to hide. Emma pondered for a moment, then nodded. "The Savage Lands are great, but do we have to hide there forever? After we take them to the Savage Lands, I'll come out and rescue them." Alex shook his head, his voice firm. "I can't just stand by and watch my fellow mutants die. I have to save them. I'll go." Before Emma could finish, a burst of gunfire rang out, followed by exclamations of surprise. Alex's face dropped. He turned to look. American soldiers had gathered around him, each wielding machine guns. Tanks and artillery were also nearby, bringing with them a ferocious barrage. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the nearly 100 young mutants gathered in the center of the arena collapsed, some wounded, others dead instantly. Disbelief filled their young faces. Alex, no longer bothering to conceal his strength, vanished into the center of the arena. His telekinesis instantly enveloped the young mutants, preparing to carry them away. However, Alex was frustrated by the sudden change, leaving the young mutants emotionally turbulent and their minds in disarray. Teleportation proved ineffective. Emma, prepare to strike back. Teleportation proved ineffective, forcing Alex to fight back. He couldn't stand by and watch these mutants die under the humans' guns. As for the humans, he could only show them some mercy. Unfortunately, Alex's plan was a good one. He activated his telepathy and controlled many of the humans. Before Alex could react, a young mutant suddenly charged forward and smashed a human's head with a single blow. It was Iron Fist Petrovich. Alex tried to stop him, but it was too late. After Petrovich's successful strike, the remaining young mutants snapped back to their senses, their eyes reddened as they rushed towards the human. Their 2 weeks of learning had finally paid homage to the American soldier. Chaos ensued. No one listened to Alex's shouts, no matter how loud he screamed. Even telepathy had no effect on the enraged young mutants. Alex sighed, unleashing full force, joining the fray. At this point, further mercy was futile. Better to resolve the situation quickly and get them out of here. No mistakes. Unleashing his true power, Alex was a battlefield reaper, his devastation astonishing. His movements were stealthier than those of the Red Devil, and his killing speed swifter than a torrent. With a single, group attack skill, Alex simply devastated the American soldiers. Half an hour later, the battle was over. Every American soldier lay on the ground. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive, but at least 70% had been killed or wounded. Humanity's hatred of mutants would intensify significantly as a result of this battle. The American casualties were immense, and the mutant casualties were also significant. Alex and Emma would be safe, but the young mutants were young after all. Despite 2 weeks of training, most were still battlefield novices. Nearly 50 fell in the first wave of gunfire, and more than a dozen more perished in the ensuing battle. After the entire battle, only about 20 survived. The mermaid Ialina, with a sweet smile, collapsed in a pool of blood. 3 bullets had taken her life at the very beginning of the battle. The imposter, Cullen, lay on his back, his face etched with rage, having been shot in the heart. Alex's eyes welled with tears as he glanced at the bodies lying on the ground. He couldn't help but roar to the heavens, why? Why? The young mutants also came to their senses and looked around. Deep in their hearts, a seed of hatred was deeply buried. After a long moment, the anger on their faces gradually faded. Uncontrollable sadness spread across the desert, and tears flowed uncontrollably. What happened? At this moment, Sebastian Shaw's voice rang out. Chapter 104, Incitement Again. Hearing the noise, Alex and Emma turned their heads, their rage rising. They charged forward with great strides, each punching Sebastian Shaw in the face without a word. Where have you all been? Sebastian Shaw didn't flinch, bracing himself to take the blows. His face was filled with sorrow, and as he looked at the bodies strewn across the floor, tears streamed down his face. What on earth happened? Can anyone tell me? Alex and Emma were stunned by Sebastian Shaw's unusual expression. After a pause, they finally replied, the United States has issued an arrest warrant for all mutants nationwide. What? Sebastian Shaw's face was filled with surprise, and the Red Devils following behind him shared the same expression. Until now, he had suspected that all this was Sebastian Shaw's doing. After all, his ambition was world domination, and provoking a war between humans and mutants was a given. But seeing their expressions, Alex became puzzled. It must be Stephen Lang and his cabinet council. Sebastian Shaw cursed fiercely, his face filled with anger. Alex frowned and looked at Sebastian Shaw, still a little skeptical. Stephen Lang? Who is he? Stephen Lang, the current leader of the Hellfire Club. Sebastian Shaw looked up at Alex and explained in a deep voice, he and his inner circle have been plotting to destroy mutants. This time, he was the one who summoned us back to headquarters and detained us for such a long time. What? Alex stared at Sebastian Shaw in amazement, feeling as if his brain wasn't enough. Isn't the Hellfire Club run by mutants? How could a leader who wanted to destroy mutants suddenly appear? Sebastian Shaw had more important things to do, so he had no time to introduce the Hellfire Club to Alex. He pretended not to hear and turned to look at the young mutants. With a sad face, he said, I rescued you from the Soviet base, but I failed to fulfill my responsibility to protect you. For this, I am very sorry. As he spoke, Sebastian Shaw suddenly bent down and said sincerely, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Seeing my compatriots die one by one at the hands of humans, I am very painful and very angry. Sebastian Shaw's words seemed to be full of magic. Just a few simple words excited all the young people, but soon they calmed down. We cannot forget the hatred of mankind, but first we must find the culprit. Sebastian Shaw took a long breath and said slowly, the culprit is Stephen Lang. He stole the leadership of the Hellfire Club and ordered mutants to fight humans. At the same time, he communicated with a human government in an attempt to destroy all mutants. He's the one who started this war between humans and mutants. We must find him, defeat him, and restore the Hellfire Club to mutant control. Sebastian Shaw spoke with increasing excitement, his face flushing slightly. Only in this way can we put an end to this senseless war. He's inciting them again. Emma leaned over to Alex, angrily saying, he's leading them to their deaths. Alex shook his head, his brow furrowed. He said seriously, although I hate Sebastian Shaw's tactics and I doubt his true intentions, I have to say he's absolutely right. Stephen Lang must be eliminated. Emma knew this too. She sighed, a look of resignation on her face. She knew Stephen Lang had to die. After all, Stephen Lang was now the leader of the Hellfire Club. As long as he was around, the conflict between humans and mutants would only intensify. The war between them would never end until mutants were completely destroyed. Kill! 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 3 consecutive shouts of kill jolted Alex and Emma out of their trance. They looked in astonishment at the source of the shouts, a group of 20 or so mutants, their eyes red and seething with rage. Before they could react, Sebastian Shaw spoke again, all right, we'll charge into New York immediately. Kill Stephen Lang and reclaim leadership. Kill Stephen Lang. Reclaim leadership. Kill Stephen Lang. Reclaim leadership. Kill Stephen Lang. Reclaim leadership. Amid the relentless cheers of the 20-odd people, the Red Devil stepped forward and vanished with a few others. After 2 round trips, the group had arrived in New York from Las Vegas. The Hellfire Club's headquarters was there, less than 500 meters from where they had settled. Sebastian Shaw didn't attack immediately, but instead spoke again, adding fuel to the fire. The already seething young people were completely extinguished, their hearts devoid of anything but the single thought, kill Stephen Lang, reclaim leadership. Alex wasn't inspired by Sebastian Shaw's incitement, but he was moved by the heroic spirit of the martyrs before their deaths, and he couldn't help but feel excited. Should we stop him? Emma, still conscious, telepathically communicated, worried. They'll all die? Alex came to his senses, a hint of sadness crossing his face. I'll do my best to protect them. This battle was inevitable, and Alex could only do his best to minimize casualties. Finally, a group of people entered the Hellfire Club's headquarters, a towering, magnificent-looking building. Are we just going up there? Alex, standing at the foot of the building, looked at Sebastian Shaw in surprise. Wouldn't it be better to just teleport in? Sebastian Shaw was slightly taken aback, then began to explain, we have to stay together. They're extremely powerful. Alex frowned at this and glanced sideways at the Red Devil beside him, doubting Sebastian Shaw's reasoning. Without waiting for Alex to speak again, Sebastian Shaw took the lead and walked up the stairs, followed closely by the others. He seems to be doing it on purpose. Give them time. Alex grabbed Emma, looking confused. Emma was also full of doubts about Sebastian Shaw's strange arrangement. She looked up at the top floor of the building and suggested, why don't we just go up and kill them? Alex didn't hesitate at all. He took Emma and disappeared in an instant. He appeared directly on the top floor of the building. In a huge conference room, 3 people were sitting inside, laughing and talking. One of them was the culprit who started the war, and he was also the one who laughed the most wildly among the 3. When Alex appeared with Emma, a trace of horror flashed across the faces of the 3 people. Who are you? The people who will kill you. Chapter 105 Aftermath. Alex attacked without hesitation, appearing beside Stephen Lang just as the dagger was about to slash across his neck. Emma suddenly reached out to stop him. Wait, Alex. Emma frowned at him, her expression darkening. Pointing at Stephen Lang's head, she angrily declared, I found something. From his head? What? Alex paused, the dagger still resting on his neck. He turned to Emma. Emma shook her head and said slowly, I can't explain it. You'll have to see for yourself. Alex was surprised by this. He activated his telepathy, rapidly searching Stephen Lang's memories. Gradually, Alex's face darkened. After a long silence, he roared, Sebastian Shaw, you beast. From Stephen Lang's memories, Alex discovered that Sebastian Shaw had been the spark that sparked the war between humans and mutants. The initial attacks on humans by mutants were all carried out by Sebastian Shaw and his men. This news soon reached Stephen Lang, who capitalized on the situation and replicated several more attacks, fueling humanity's hatred of mutants. He then lobbied the government, and war ensued. What now? Emma looked at Alex, awaiting his decision. Alex was silent for a moment, then suddenly looked up at Emma and said gravely, kill Stephen Lang and pretend you knew nothing. Alex wanted to kill Sebastian Shaw immediately, but Sebastian Shaw was the key to their control of the Hellfire Club and couldn't die just yet. Emma, though reluctant, understood the situation and nodded in agreement. Kill our 3, please, spare us. Stephen Lang remained resolute, never begging for mercy. But the other 2 lacked such courage. Upon hearing Emma's words, their faces paled with fear, and they kowtowed repeatedly, begging for mercy. As long as you spare us, we'll agree to anything. What if I think of your White Queen? Emma's words stirred, and she turned to look at one of them, asking expectantly. If Sebastian Shaw could directly control the Hellfire Club, he could have easily left it immediately. The 2 begging for mercy exchanged glances, stammering but unable to utter a single word. Speak clearly, or I'll kill you. Emma's face darkened, and she shouted. With a hint of tears in her voice, the 2 men explained, the core members of the Hellfire Club aren't just anyone who wants to be. They must be elected by all members or directly appointed by the Supreme King. Then what's the point of you? Emma already knew this rule, otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen to work with Sebastian Shaw. The 2 men trembled with fear again at this, one so much so that he urinated. But they continued to plead, although we're not core management, we still have considerable influence in the Hellfire Club. With our help, I can nominate you for the Black King election. Emma frowned, took a few steps back in disgust, then paused and turned to look at Alex. How dare you? Stephen Lang suddenly shouted, frightening the 2 men who had been begging for mercy. If you dare to do anything that goes against the Hellfire Club's principles, the Supreme King will not forgive you. Keeping them around will only lead to trouble. It's better to follow Sebastian Shaw. Alex shook his head and telepathically said, although Sebastian Shaw's ambitions are great, he's on the side of the mutants. When Sebastian Shaw and his men finally reached the top floor, Alex and Emma had been waiting for a while. 3 bodies lay neatly beside them. You did it. Sebastian Shaw glanced at the 3 bodies on the ground, his eyes narrowing, a hint of joy hidden deep inside. He turned to look at Alex and Emma, who wore a half-smile. How did you do it? We just went straight into the dragon's lair. Easy. Alex didn't intend to elaborate, and after a few words, he fell silent. Sebastian Shaw didn't even ask any more questions. Instead, he turned around and prepared to leave with the others. Let's get out of here immediately. It's not safe here anymore. After leaving New York, the group returned to Las Vegas and took refuge in Sebastian Shaw's bar. Sebastian Shaw had been operating in Las Vegas for years and had considerable influence, so hiding over 20 people was easy. It's been 3 months, and Shaw still hasn't made any move. 3 months passed, and the group spent their days in the bar, either drinking or daydreaming, occasionally finding time to teach the 20 or so young mutants. Apart from that, they hadn't done a single thing, which made Alex extremely anxious. There seems to be no news about the Black King election. The only good news was that with Stephen Lang's death, the Hellfire Club responded swiftly. After a secret deal with the government, the arrest warrant for the mutants was lifted, and the war between humans and mutants came to an end, finally averting a crisis for the mutants. Emma actually enjoyed such days. She taught students in her free time and spent the rest of her time with Alex, drinking and taking walks. She was very happy. But when Alex mentioned Sebastian Shaw, Emma's good mood disappeared immediately. She snuggled into Alex's arms again, her little hands playfully scratching Alex's chest. Don't worry, they must be dealing with the last incident. If this matter is not handled properly, the Hellfire Club will not be able to remain stable, and the Black King election will naturally not be able to proceed. Alex was a little worried. He suddenly sat up from the bed and quickly put on his clothes. I'll go ask Nick to see if there is any new information. Emma looked at Alex with resentment, sighed for a long time, and got off the bed. Her naked body was slightly flushed. I'll go see those little guys too. As long as I'm not around, they will immediately slack off. Emma, it's a pity that you are not a teacher. Alex pecked Emma's lips lightly and disappeared in a flash. Emma's lips curled up slightly with a smile as she put on her clothes and turned to leave the room. Nick, how's it going? Alex had been to New York City no fewer than 50 times in the past 3 months, almost daily. Especially in the days after Stephen Lang's elimination, he'd come every day and stay for long periods, just to wait for news. Nick Fury, seeing Alex appear before him once again, grew increasingly annoyed. He pulled a file from his desk drawer and casually tossed it in front of Alex. Take a look. Alex smiled nonchalantly, then carefully flipped through the file. It was actually a mutant registration form. Although the government had rescinded the mutant arrest warrant, for security reasons, it still required all mutants to register for easier management. Of course, this mandate only applied to mutants who had been exposed or could no longer hide. For those who remained undetected, no one registered, like Alex, Emma, and the young people in Las Vegas. What do these mean? Alex looked and found that many registration forms were crossed out. He turned the file over and showed it to Nick, his face a little gloomy. I see quite a few are crossed out. Could it be that the government has done something again? It's not the government. Nick Fury shrugged and said helplessly, these mutants have run away and disappeared. Mutants really don't like being among humans. Alex breathed a sigh of relief and spread his hands, looking relieved. I hope they don't get into trouble. Nick Fury lowered his head and continued to process his own documents, saying, if they commit a crime and get caught, you know the consequences. I will update one chapter today and make up for it tomorrow. By the way, please subscribe, recommend and support. Chapter 106, Fangs Appear. After making sure nothing would happen again, Alex was content to leave when Carter walked in, her high heels clattering, her face full of anxiety. Seeing Alex, Carter nodded as a greeting, then turned to look at Nick Fury and said quickly, I just received a message from Natasha that the Red Skull has appeared again. Red Skull? Isn't he dead? Alex couldn't help but feel curious when he heard this. He remembered that the Red Skull fell directly from the plane into the sea. From such a high altitude, he should have been smashed to pieces. Carter and Nick Fury were stunned when they heard this, then they remembered that Alex didn't know about this, and began to explain. At the end of World War II, the Red Skull suddenly appeared and almost changed the war. In the end, It was the Hellfire Club that stepped in and dealt with the Red Skull. Nick Fury frowned again, a little puzzled. But why did the Red Skull appear again? The Red Skull appeared this time. It seems that he wants to take back Hydra from Strucker. Carter spread out the documents in his hand, put them on Nick Fury's desk and said, "Those people in the Ministry of Science and Technology are taking the opportunity to seek independence. Hydra is in a mess now, let them make trouble, it would be better if they die." Nick Fury rolled his eyes and lowered his head to read the documents. "It has nothing to do with us anyway." Carter smiled bitterly and put another piece of paper in front of Nick. "Talk after you finish reading this." Nick Fury turned his gaze to the paper in surprise. Seeing the picture on it, his dark face became even darker. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Carter, and said in disbelief, "The Cosmic Cube, the Tesseract." Alex suddenly stood up from his chair and turned to look at Nick Fury. "You were talking about the Tesseract, Alex. We're in big trouble this time. Red Skull has found the Tesseract again." Nick Fury reached out and tossed the paper to Alex, his broad palms pressed together, his single eye flickering. Alex took the paper and examined it carefully. It wasn't the Tesseract, but an energy gun like those used by Hydra's soldiers during World War II, only smaller in size, yet possessing far greater power. And Red Skull is accompanied by a number of mutants. As bad news piled up, Carter pulled out several more documents and pointed to several photos. "And these mutants are the ones we've been missing from our surveillance." Red Skull, mutants. This is getting more interesting. Nick Fury picked up a photo, a cold smile on his dark face that sent a chill down his spine. Alex's mind was in a state of confusion after hearing these repeated reports. He left New York with a single word, "I'm leaving now." How did the Tesseract end up with Red Skull? Alex was puzzled. Before being abducted by the Watchers and taken to the Savage Lands, Alex had hidden the Tesseract in his Brooklyn home. Upon his return, everything had changed. Alex naturally assumed the Tesseract had also been taken by the Watchers, so he hadn't considered looking for it. But to Alex's surprise, the Tesseract appeared alongside Red Skull, along with mutants. Recalling Nick Fury's earlier account of the post-World War II clash between the Hellfire Club and Red Skull, Alex instinctively connected this incident to Sebastian Shaw. Returning to Las Vegas, Alex immediately sought out Riptide, Shaw's trusted confidant and knowledgeable about many things, including Red Skull. Searching Riptide's memories, Alex discovered that Sebastian Shaw's plans far exceeded his expectations. Both Red Skull and the Tesseract were now under his control. "Alex, you shouldn't do this." Alex released his telepathy and was about to leave when Emma came over, staring at the rapids for a long time, erasing some things before letting him leave. "Any rash action like this will alert Sebastian Shaw. I can't care less about that." Alex smiled bitterly and told the news he had just received. Sebastian Shaw had already made all the preparations, and we were kept in the dark. Emma was obviously also shocked. It took her a long time to come back to her senses. "Then what should we do now?" "Find the Cosmic Cube." Alex frowned and said in a deep voice, "The Cosmic Cube must not remain in Zio's hands." "Any news?" Alex shook his head when he heard this. "Zio hid the Cosmic Cube. No one knows where it is except Zio himself." "Then what should we do?" "Should we go find Shaw now?" Sebastian Shaw is the key figure in their control of the Hellfire Club. He must not die now, nor can he be alerted. Emma shrugged helplessly. "Actually, I'm more curious about how Red Skull came to be Shaw's subordinate, and how they found the Tesseract." The speaker may not mean it, but the listener may take it seriously. Alex's heart moved, and he said with some surprise, "Perhaps Red Skull knows something." "Are you going to find Red Skull?" Emma pondered for a moment, a little worried. "Will that alert Shaw?" Red Skull is now under Sebastian Shaw's command. If they try to trouble Red Skull, it is very likely to alert Sebastian Shaw. If Sebastian Shaw finds them, it will be troublesome. "Don't worry, it will be fine." Alex was very confident. After saying goodbye to Emma, he returned to the SHIELD headquarters in New York. Looking at Alex who had come back, Nick Fury was slightly surprised. "Why, have a plan?" Alex nodded and whispered, "Help me find Red Skull. I have something to ask him." "That's easy." Nick Fury smiled and picked up a photo from the drawer under the table and threw it to Alex. Red Skull is now at the Hydra Japan headquarters. Strucker has no way to deal with him. The ninja assassins of the Hand have tried to assassinate him several times, but all ended in failure. Red Skull has Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club behind him. It's difficult for Strucker to deal with Red Skull. Alex knew this would be the result. He sighed and said helplessly. Nick Fury suddenly stood up upon hearing this. looking at Alex in surprise. Are you telling the truth? Alex shrugged and casually replied, the information from Sebastian Shaw's men is absolutely true. As he spoke, Alex had already picked up the photo and examined it carefully. No, we must not let Red Skull seize control of Hydra. Nick Fury pondered for a long time before finally speaking in a deep voice. Alex, we need your help. That's what I came here to say. If Sebastian Shaw's plan succeeded, and Red Skull successfully seized control of Hydra, and then Sebastian Shaw took control of the Hellfire Club, it would mean that Sebastian Shaw would control the two most powerful organizations in the world, Hellfire Club and Hydra. No one in the world would be able to stop his ambitions. This was unacceptable to both Shield and Alex. Well, Scorpio broke his promise, didn't make up for it, and is now owed another update. Chapter 107 Goodbye Red Skull. With the help of Nick Fury, Alex quickly found the Red Skull. Who are you? The Red Skull, with a ferocious and terrifying red skull on his head, looked at Alex, who suddenly appeared, calmly, and even took a sip of wine leisurely. Handor Strucker? You're amazing to have made it this far. Submit to me and I'll spare your life. Seeing the Red Skull again, Alex felt a little strange. He was silent for a while before replying, Sebastian Shaw. The Red Skull suddenly stood up from the sofa, completely losing his previous recklessness. A trace of panic appeared on his skinless face. Who are you? Why have I never seen you before? In fact, I'm Sebastian Shaw's enemy, Alex said directly without hiding anything. I'm here to help you. What do you mean by help me? The Red Skull said loudly, his eyes looking out the door from time to time, looking a little panicked. Don't worry, I've taken care of them all, Alex said with a faint smile, his lips curled up slightly. Now, there are only the two of us here. To Alex's surprise, Red Skull became even more panicked, pointing at him and shouting, You killed them? You killed them. We're all going to die, all of us. Alex stared at the trembling Red Skull, a look of disbelief on his face. Was this the same Red Skull who had once aspired to world domination? What had Sebastian Shaw done to him? Confused, Alex used telepathy to search Red Skull's memories. Fake. Alex was surprised as he carefully searched Red Skull's memories. He was a fake Red Skull, a replica that Sebastian Shaw had specially created based on the real Red Skull, who was still being held captive by Sebastian Shaw. He examined the Red Skull before him. It was identical to the one he remembered, from the build to the red face, but his eyes lacked that unstoppable, domineering aura. You're not Red Skull? Alex asked the nearly panicked Red Skull in a seductive voice, his telepathy steadily breaking down his mental defenses. Finally, Red Skull burst into tears, crouching on the ground and wailing, crying out, I'm not Red Skull. I'm really not Red Skull. Watching Red Skull sobbing at the top of his lungs, Alex finally realized the Red Skull before him was fake. This is a problem. Alex had originally planned to find the real Red Skull and join forces with him to take down Sebastian Shaw, but now that seemed impossible. After a moment's contemplation, Alex shook his head and sighed, deciding to proceed with Plan B before approaching Red Skull. Alex had already formulated two plans. Plan A was to join forces with Red Skull to take down Sebastian Shaw, leaving Hydra and Strucker to fight it out. Plan B was actually a backup plan. When the Red Skull refused to join forces, Alex had no choice but to join forces with Strucker to prevent the Red Skull from controlling Hydra and Sebastian Shaw from controlling Hydra. After clearing all the memories of the fake Red Skull and returning him to the state before his appearance, Alex left and went straight to Strucker. Seeing Alex, Strucker was startled. Why are you here? I want to discuss business with you. Alex pointed to the other people in the room and said with a smile, let them leave. I can help with what you are worried about. Strucker glanced at the others hesitantly, then looked at Alex, pondered for a while, and nodded for everyone else to leave. After everyone had left, Strucker spoke, his face grim and threatening. No matter who you work for, I expect you to tell the truth, otherwise. Alex snorted coldly and instantly appeared beside Strucker. He raised his hand and grabbed Strucker by the collar, then lifted Strucker and said viciously, I haven't settled the score with you yet. Don't mess with me. Strucker's expression remained unchanged, and he said calmly, all right, let's not talk about the past anymore. Let's talk about the present. Alex didn't want to have a bad relationship with Strucker, so he nodded and said, Red Skull is fake. What? Strucker suddenly stood up, looking at Alex with suspicion. Alex didn't hide it and told him about his previous search for Red Skull. Find a way to expose Red Skull's fake identity, and Hydra will still be yours. Alex didn't reveal the whereabouts of the real Red Skull. He hoped to use Strucker to force Sebastian Shaw to release Red Skull so that he could implement Plan A. That's easy, Strucker, recovering from his shock, said confidently to Alex. I'm telling you this on condition. Alex seized the opportunity to state his demands. Give me the Winter Soldier. I want to take him back. Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, had vanished since his last appearance. Natasha had been lurking in Hydra for so long, yet there was no news of him. Alex wanted to seize the opportunity to retrieve him. The Winter Soldier. Strucker looked at Alex with confusion, unsure of what he was talking about. Bucky Barnes, a member of the Howling Commandos in World War II, was captured by you and trained into a killing machine. Alex had been monitoring Strucker's mind, and that statement didn't sound like a lie. Strucker shook his head, a little confused, and said, I know him. Isn't he dead? Alex's frown deepened, and he activated his telepathy to search Strucker's memories again, but unfortunately, there was no news of the Winter Soldier, nor of Captain America. Confused, Alex returned to SHIELD headquarters in New York. What happened? Nick Fury was a little surprised by Alex's expression. Alex looked up at Nick Fury and asked hesitantly, Did Natasha send back any news? Nick Fury smiled bitterly, shook his head, and said, No, she secretly contacted several high-ranking Hydra officials, but without exception, there was no news of Bucky. Nick Fury paused, then continued, I suspect Bucky is not a Hydra member. The five-pointed red star is not a Hydra symbol. It looks more like a Soviet one, Soviet Union. Alex was a little puzzled. He remembered that in the movie, the Winter Soldier was a Hydra member. But on second thought, Alex suddenly realized that the world had been shattered by him, and it was normal for such changes to occur. Have you sent anyone to investigate? In fact, I sent people there a month ago. Nick Fury pursed his lips and said slowly with a faint smile, During this special period, the mission is more difficult. There is no news yet. Could Steve also be in the Soviet Union? Alex's brainstorming started, and he said with hope. Nick Fury pondered for a moment, shook his head and said, In fact, I now suspect that Steve was killed by the Red Skull, because not long after the captain's accident, the Red Skull appeared. Chapter 108 True Red Skull. Red Skull. Alex's heart moved when he heard this, and he turned to look at Nick Fury. Of course, this is just my guess. Nick Fury tilted his head, a faint smile on his dark face. Steve's murder and the appearance of Red Skull were so close that it's easy to make such speculations. Why didn't you say it before? Steve was killed first, and then Red Skull appeared. Nick Fury shrugged, sighed, and said helplessly, This is also the key to why it's difficult to connect the two. Common sense should be that Red Skull appeared first, and then Steve was killed. Alex frowned tightly and slammed the armrest of the chair hard, looking unwilling. Don't worry, I've sent people to infiltrate the Red Skull, and there will be news soon. Looking at Alex's expression, Nick Fury comforted him softly. There are not many people around the Red Skull. It's easy to get close to him. Don't waste your energy. The Red Skull now is a fake. Alex looked up at Nick Fury and said unhappily, a wimp who can be scared to incontinence by a few words. Nick Fury was obviously shocked by the news. He was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses. He looked at Alex blankly and asked, Are you telling the truth? It's true. I've already told Stark. Alex smiled bitterly and continued, The real Red Skull is still being held captive by Shaw, but I don't know where he is. Nick Fury put his hands on the table, his palms together, his thumb against his chin, and his two index fingers constantly touching, as if asking questions, and as if talking to himself. Does Stark know the news? Alex knew that Nick Fury was thinking. After becoming the director of SHIELD, Nick Fury was wiser than before. What do you think Strucker will do? After pondering for a while, Nick Fury suddenly raised his head, his deep eyes fixed on Alex. What else can we do? Isn't it just exposing the Red Skull's fake identity? Alex looked at Nick Fury with a strange expression, and said as a matter of course, once the Red Skull's identity is exposed, those loyal to him in Hydra will naturally stop causing trouble. Alex, you are not fit to be a leader. Nick Fury shook his head, looking at Alex seriously. He said, If I were Strucker, I would secretly befriend this fake Red Skull, win him over, and make him my pawn. This is the wisest way. Alex curled his lips, thinking of the fake Red Skull who was trembling with fear by his few words, and said with disdain, The fake Red Skull is Zio's man. With his courage, he would definitely not dare to betray Zio. To be chosen by Shaw as the fake Red Skull, his intelligence must be quite high. Nick Fury said solemnly, his face turning serious. Hydra's power is no less than the Hellfire Club. On balance, he's very likely to choose to submit to Strucker. If he's more ambitious and takes his time, he might be able to seize power at Hydra and become the true Red Skull. Nick, are you overthinking it? Alex stared at Nick Fury in astonishment. Nick Fury shrugged, his expression returning to composure. Whether it's more or less, you'll find out soon. Just 7 days later, new news arrived. The Red Skull has returned, and will lead Hydra back to its former glory. Alex didn't initially hear the news from SHIELD, but rather from Sebastian Shaw's frosty face. He then sought confirmation from Nick Fury before finally confirming it. Nick, you really guessed it? Alex turned to Nick Fury, who was at the top with a mysterious smile, and exclaimed in admiration, Nick, you're amazing. With the Red Skull's return, a major purge was inevitable within Hydra. For safety's sake, Natasha had already withdrawn. Hearing Alex's compliment, Natasha looked at Nick Fury with some confusion. Nick, what happened? Nick Fury didn't intend to elaborate, but changed the subject. He turned to Alex and asked, Hydra has stabilized. Now it all depends on the Hellfire Club, and specifically Sebastian Shaw's actions. Okay, I'll go back and see. Alex rushed over excitedly upon hearing the news, unsure how Sebastian Shaw would react. Having just returned to Las Vegas, Alex had received the general news from Ella's covert notification. Furious, Sebastian Shaw was indeed ready to respond, but he hadn't yet come up with a specific plan and was about to gather everyone to discuss it. Of course, these so-called everyone were actually just a few of Sebastian Shaw's trusted confidants, and Emma was fortunate to be one of them. This was thanks to Emma's careful mentoring of the young mutant over the past few months, which had earned Sebastian Shaw's trust. Okay, go ahead, I'll find someone. Alex, not qualified to participate in the discussion, left a message and disappeared again. The person Alex was looking for was none other than Baron Strucker, now second in command of Hydra after Red Skull. Seeing Alex suddenly appear, even after several experiences, Strucker was still startled, and the Red Skull standing next to him was even more frightened. Stark forced himself to calm down, looking at Alex with a hint of wariness. What do you want to do? I'm telling you the news. I haven't collected the reward yet. Alex pointed to the trembling Red Skull hiding behind Stark, sneered and asked, Is there any news about Bucky? He is in the Soviet Union. He sank to the bottom of the sea with a ship and was accidentally found and rescued by a Soviet submarine. Stark seemed to have been prepared. He thought for a moment and spoke without hesitation. He was then trained as an agent to help the Soviet Union complete various assassination missions. Rumor has it that Hitler died in his hands during World War II. No mistake. One poem, one post, one content, one book, one bar. Alex snorted again and said, You're quite well prepared. Is there a way to get him out? Strucker shrugged and said helplessly, The Winter Soldier, also known as Bucky, is frozen after each mission and sealed in a secret location, somewhere no one knows. Seeing Alex's face gradually changing color, Strucker continued, Now he's frozen, and we can't find him. Alex didn't believe Strucker and secretly used telepathy to confirm that Strucker hadn't deceived him. Filled with disappointment, Alex returned to Las Vegas once again. As soon as he appeared, Emma pulled him into a room. What's wrong? Seeing the strange expression on Emma's face, Alex was a little surprised. Is Shaw planning something big? Shaw is planning to release the real Red Skull, Emma said telepathically, her eyes slyly smiling. And he's assigned me to supervise Red Skull. Alex was slightly stunned, a look of surprise on his face. Alex hadn't expected Sebastian Shaw to respond in this way, and it felt a bit reckless. After all, releasing the real Red Skull at this point could easily create a scene of a real versus fake Monkey King. But on second thought, Alex felt that since Sebastian Shaw had made such a decision, he must be confident of victory. Of course, regardless of the truth, as long as Alex saw the real Red Skull, Steve's information would be revealed, and even the Cosmic Cube might be found. Scorpio has been in a bad mood these past few days, and I'm ashamed to update only once a day. Scorpio will work hard to adjust an update as soon as possible. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 The Captain is Dead? 2 days later, Sebastian Shaw reappeared with Red Skull, accompanied by Red Devil. Standing together, their two redheads huddled together, they looked surprisingly well matched. Alex quickly dismissed the two redheads from his mind, his eyes narrowing slightly as he scrutinized the red skull before him. If it weren't for the large crowd, Alex would have been tempted to use telepathy immediately. Emma, you must keep an eye on him for me. Sebastian Shaw pushed Red Skull, his hands clasped behind his back, in front of Emma. Turning to look at him, he said fiercely, "This guy is cunning. Don't believe a word he says. His soul lies." Emma glanced at the handcuffs binding Red Skull's hands, offish white handcuffs that looked like they were encased in a shell. She nodded, turned back to Sebastian Shaw, and said solemnly, "Don't worry, I will." Besides Emma, only Alex was with Red Skull, the others had been left behind by Sebastian Shaw. Seeing this arrangement, Alex suddenly felt something in his heart, feeling a little strange. He quickly contacted Emma and asked, "Why are only the two of us going? I asked for it." "It's convenient." Emma turned to look at Alex and replied casually, "When the time comes, we can do whatever we want." But Alex still felt something was wrong. He secretly glanced at Sebastian Shaw and the Red Devil. Looking at the calm expressions on their faces, he became more and more panicked. He didn't object. The Red Skull is an important chess piece in Sebastian Shaw's hands. How could Sebastian Shaw hand him over to someone else so casually? Emma shook her head slightly, looking at Alex in surprise, a bit confused. "What's wrong?" Alex was about to reply when Sebastian Shaw suddenly spoke up. "Emma, don't let me down. We must take down Hydra. That way, we'll have more leverage and a better chance of success." Emma came back to her senses, smiled and nodded, then looked at Sebastian Shaw meaningfully and asked, "I know, but I don't know when I can become the White Queen." After Stephen Lang's death, the Hellfire Club fell into chaos. Sebastian Shaw looked at Emma and Alex strangely, then continued with a look of worry. "The Supreme King needs to be re-elected before the Black King election can begin. I'm afraid it will take some time." Interrupted by Sebastian Shaw, Alex didn't have the chance to speak again. He followed Emma and Red Skull onto a plane bound for Japan, leaving Las Vegas. On the plane, Alex was already eagerly searching Red Skull's memories, putting his previous doubts behind him once again. Searching Red Skull's memories, Alex suddenly froze. A memory flashed through his mind. After a long pause, Alex said in disbelief, "Steve's dead." In the memory, Red Skull pulled out his energy pistol, transformed from the energy of the cosmic cube. A blue energy bullet struck Steve, who hadn't had time to draw his shield. A gaping wound appeared in Steve's chest, nearly shattering his heart. Under the impact of the energy bullet, Steve's body flew up into the icy ocean behind him, where he quickly sank. Emma had been sitting next to Alex, flipping through the newspaper, oblivious to his expression. Upon hearing this, she turned and looked at him in surprise. "What?" Alex turned to look at Emma, a deathly look gradually creeping over his handsome features, his eyes misting over. "Steve's dead," he said mechanically, pointing at the wide-eyed Red Skull. "He killed him, Alex." "I didn't expect you to have telepathy," Red Skull suddenly spoke, a scornful smile on his blood-red face. Alex shuddered at the Red Skull's words and turned to look at him, his face glazed with shock. You remember me?" "I'll never forget you," Red Skull snapped, puzzled, thinking Alex was mocking him. Alex and Emma exchanged glances, their eyes flashing with disbelief and surprise. The whole world had forgotten him, but he hadn't expected such an enemy to still remember him. He didn't know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Filled with surprise and astonishment, Alex temporarily forgot about Steve and focused on searching Red Skull's memories, trying to understand why Otto, the observer, hadn't erased his memory. After much searching, Alex finally discovered the key. Before Steve's accident, Red Skull had taken the Tesseract from his Brooklyn home, but he hadn't noticed. It was precisely because of this Tesseract that the observer had been unable to erase Red Skull's memory. Unfortunately, the Tesseract was now in Sebastian Shaw's possession. "What did you see?" Red Skull, seeing Alex's expression, understood what he was doing and chuckled. "If you want to know, just ask directly. No need to search. My memory isn't that clear." "Are you familiar with telepathy?" Alex asked casually, and the telepathy continued to search Red Skull's memory. As Red Skull had said, his memories were extremely chaotic, even full of inconsistencies, leaving Alex deeply perplexed. "For over a year now, my memory has been searched daily," Red Skull grinned, a terrifying smile that sent shivers down your spine. "How do you think my memory is so messed up?" "It's all because of her. Alex hadn't expected his casual question to lead to such a revealing discovery. As he spoke, he intensified his search for the Red Skull had mentioned, and soon found a target. Tessa, yes, a very annoying woman. Red Skull shrugged, his expression relaxed. By the way, she also has a nickname, Sage. Alex and Emma were stunned at the words, staring at each other, their eyes filled with confusion. In that moment, they realized they truly couldn't fathom Sebastian Shaw. Emma's telepathy had been Sebastian Shaw's reason for trusting her. But now they knew Sebastian Shaw already had someone with telepathic abilities around him, so why did he keep Emma around? Now, leaving Red Skull alone with them would inevitably expose Sage's existence. What was Sebastian Shaw planning? Also, this Sage, Alex and Emma had never seen him before. How many forces were hidden behind Sebastian's eye? The more they thought about it, the more panicked Alex and Emma became. Chapter 110 Premonition of Mutation. What do we do now? Emma turned to look at him, a look of pity on her face, a slight pallor on her face. Alex shook his head imperceptibly, telepathically saying, let's just ignore everything for now and pretend we know nothing. Ignore it. Alex's idea clearly didn't reassure Emma, her voice still trembling in the telepathic transmission. He won't kill us, will he? That depends on whether he has the ability to do so, Alex sneered, nonchalant. Sebastian Shaw's deep concealment had indeed made Alex panic for a moment. But then he relaxed again. No matter how deep he hid, with all his abilities protecting him, Alex was confident that Sebastian Shaw couldn't do anything to him. Alex wanted to see what Sebastian Shaw was up to. After putting Sebastian Shaw aside, Alex consoled Emma a few more times before returning to search Red Skull's memories. Red Skull's memories were extremely chaotic, many of them even contradictory. Alex strongly suspected Red Skull had fabricated them himself. Therefore, Alex must find out all the memories about Steve, and then distinguish the true from the false, and find Steve's real whereabouts. The time along the way was obviously not enough. When the plane landed at the Japanese airport, Alex only found some scattered memories. The only thing to be thankful for was that Alex was basically sure that the previous picture was fake. When he got off the plane with the Red Skull, there was no grand welcome ceremony, and no one was there to pick him up. In fact, no one knew that they were in Japan. Sebastian Shaw's forces in Japan were eradicated, and even the mutants who had followed a fake Red Skull were killed. Alex and Emma, one on the left and one on the right, controlled the Red Skull with his hands free to walk on the streets of Japan. The wet rain soaked the clothes of the three. I think I know what Sebastian Shaw is up to, Emma said telepathically, tightening the scarf around Red Skull's face. He wants to kill us by using another's knife, to have Hydra kill us. Alex shook his head and said hesitantly, it's not that simple. You two, do you want to keep going like this? Red Skull suddenly spoke, a muffled voice coming from his scarf-wrapped mouth. Can we find a place to rest for a while? At least get out of the rain. After Alex and the other two found a hotel, the familiar Las Vegas bar was surprisingly closed, but it was filled with people, about 300 or 400 people, all of whom seemed to be mutants. Hundreds of people stood in the huge bar, surprisingly silent, their eyes fixed on Sebastian Shaw on the stage with uncontrollable enthusiasm. Today, we will change history. Sebastian Shaw stood up, dressed in a crisp suit and exuding an air of grandeur. Today, we will create a miracle. Mutants have existed since ancient times, but for thousands of years, they have suffered discrimination from humans, and countless mutants have died tragically at their hands. Sebastian Shaw's voice grew increasingly passionate. For the mutants of today, for the mutants of the future, I will lead everyone to build a mutant world without discrimination and oppression. Today is the starting point for us to achieve this grand goal, the greatest starting point. As Sebastian Shaw finished speaking, thunderous cheers erupted in the bar, and everyone's face was filled with uncontrollable excitement. Meanwhile, in a very ordinary hotel in Tokyo, Japan, Alex was about to have a serious conversation with Red Skull. Telepathically searching his memory was proving too difficult. Alex had just sat down across from Red Skull when he calmly said, "Before you speak, may I say a few words?" Alex paused for a moment, then nodded. The Tesseract is already in Sebastian Shaw's hands. Red Skull pointed at Alex, then at himself, and spoke slowly, word by word. His research on the Tesseract is beyond our imagination. What are you trying to say? Alex frowned, looking at Red Skull in surprise. He used telepathy to find no information. Red Skull sneered and continued, perhaps you don't know, but he has long been the Dark King of the Hellfire Club. After Stephen Lang's death, he became the Supreme King of the Hellfire Club, commanding all its power. Alex and Emma exchanged glances, somewhat unconvinced by Red Skull's words. But then they realized that Sebastian Shaw already had telepathic sages around him, making him the Dark King without a doubt. There was also a Supreme King, Stephen Lang, who had been restraining Sebastian Shaw, and now they had killed him. What does he want to do? Alex shuddered, his face turning slightly pale. Red Skull shrugged and said indifferently, he and I are similar, ambitious. I failed, but he might succeed. What do you mean? Alex's face suddenly turned pale, as if a thought had occurred to him. He has money, connections, and the Tesseract now. It's easy for him to accomplish anything, Red Skull said eagerly with a hint of envy. Besides, his people are all mutants with special powers. World War II is about to begin. Are you kidding us? Emma shuddered, staring at Red Skull in horror. She couldn't believe what he said. Alex frantically said, Emma, keep your eyes on him. Then he disappeared in an instant, returning to Las Vegas. Arriving in Las Vegas, Alex missed Sebastian Shaw's words and only heard the crowd roaring, kill all humans and establish a mutant world. Turning to gaze at the frenzied mutants around him, Alex's heart sank. Without a second thought, he rapidly unleashed his psychic energy, forcing everyone present to sleep using telepathy. This was a tremendous drain, especially on those with powerful abilities, as the psychic energy drain was even greater. Alex's face turned pale. After putting most of them to sleep, Alex finally lost the strength to put Sebastian Shaw and his loyal lackeys, Red Devil, Riptide, and the others to sleep. Seeing everyone fall to the ground, Sebastian Shaw was stunned for a moment. Then, seeing Alex, the only one still standing, his face filled with anger. Alex, did you do this? Alex swayed slightly, took a deep breath, pointed at the mutants lying on the ground, and said slowly, Shaw, stop it. This will only hurt them. You really are on the side of the humans. Sebastian Shaw's face changed several times, his brows slightly furrowed, and he looked helpless. I didn't expect that even tricking you into Japan wouldn't work. Where's Emma? Let her come out too. Alex's mental energy was extremely depleted, and even teleportation was a problem. Otherwise, he really wanted to bring Emma with him. I won't let you do this. Go, take him down. Sebastian Shaw tilted his head slightly. Beside him, Red Devil, Rapids, Ironhide, and the others rushed forward. Alex, unfazed, clenched his fist and rushed forward. With a single punch, Ironhide, the foremost of the charge, was sent flying backwards. He fell to the ground, groaning, unable to get up. At this point, Alex couldn't hold back any longer, unleashing all his strength. Seeing Alex so ferocious, Sebastian Zio was visibly startled. I was wrong. I didn't expect you to be the most powerful. In Sebastian Zio's eyes, Alex was just a little man beside Emma, and he didn't take him seriously at all. Seeing Sebastian Zio also rushing towards him, Alex was not surprised but happy. He needed Sebastian Zio's ability. Chapter 111 1 verses 10. Sebastian Shaw had no idea Alex possessed the ability to replicate. Seeing Alex charging towards him, a sinister grin crossed his thin face. He swung his right arm rapidly, his fist, as big as a bowl, fiercely hammering Alex's nose. Alex let out a strange laugh and took Sebastian Shaw's blow head-on without dodging. Huh? Sebastian Shaw gasped in surprise at Alex's lack of reaction. Then, realizing what was happening, he snorted and continued to punch, increasing the force. You're quite thick-skinned. Let's see how long you can hold out. Alex remained undeterred, not even retaliating. Instead, he punched the incoming Fire Fist. Fire Fist's power primarily stemmed from its flaming fists, its other abilities were merely average. Even Iron could not withstand Alex's power, let alone Fire Fist, who was knocked down with another blow. Watching Alex dispatch two of his subordinates in quick succession, Sebastian Shaw raged, his face growing increasingly ferocious. Alex, you must die today. With a roar, Sebastian Shaw charged at Alex like a phantom. Alex, however, showed no resistance. With a slip, he dodged Sebastian Shaw and dashed toward Jiliu, who stood ready to unleash a tornado in the distance. Eric stood beside him. Seeing Alex's ferocious momentum, Jiliu panicked. He immediately unleashed the tornado that had been forming in his palm, sending a whirlwind through the bar. The howling wind rippled through the air, leaving the bar in a state of chaos. The raging winds even hampered Eric's performance. The silver steel balls dangled in the air, posing no threat to Alex. With his absorption ability, Alex was unfazed by the wind, weaving effortlessly through it, suddenly appearing before Jiliu. Seeing Alex suddenly appear before him, Jiliu was visibly startled, completely frozen in place, unable to attack or defend. Alex sneered, his fingers forming a knife. Just as he was about to knock Jiliu unconscious, a sudden impulse struck him. He flipped his palm upwards, slashing the dagger that had emerged from the air, and the blade split it in two. Red Devil, I've been waiting for you for a long time, Alex chuckled softly, his other hand swiftly reaching out and grabbing the Red Devil, who had just escaped into the alternate dimension. With his telepathy temporarily unavailable, Alex felt very uncomfortable and worried that the Red Devil would teleport away with everyone else. So, from the beginning, Alex had wanted to copy the Red Devil's teleportation ability. Back in China, when Alex first copied these two abilities, he felt as if his body was about to be torn apart. But after copying the Red Devil's teleportation, Alex found himself feeling completely relaxed and at ease. Can it be copied? Alex asked, his eyes glancing at Eric, who was barely keeping his balance in the gust of wind. Red Devil had been beaten by Alex before, and was already somewhat afraid of him. Seeing the danger of Riptide, Red Devil had just attempted to block it and then immediately escape into the alternate dimension. But what Red Devil didn't expect was that just as he was about to escape into the alternate dimension, he was pulled out by Alex. After Alex pulled Red Devil out, he immediately punched him in the head, merciless. Alex still wanted to spare Riptide, but for the innocent human, Alex had no choice but to kill him. But at that moment, Sebastian Shaw attacked, along with 4 unfamiliar mutants. Alex thought for a moment and activated the teleportation he had just copied from Red Devil. Red Devil's teleportation was extremely unique, utilizing a special alternate dimension jump to achieve this. Before he could even glance at the alternate dimension, Alex immediately leaped out and appeared beside Eric. Grabbing Eric with one hand, Alex replicated his new ability, but the painful tearing still didn't occur. Alex felt a slight surge of excitement, thinking of the blue diamond in the wilderness that had given him a diamond-like body. Perhaps because his body had become stronger and more sturdy, his replication ability had also increased, allowing him to replicate multiple abilities simultaneously. As he pondered this, Alex suddenly felt a pain in his shoulder. Turning to look, he saw a silver steel ball lodged in his shoulder. Seeing the small hole in his shoulder, Alex was slightly horrified. Eric's ability was truly too powerful, it had even damaged his own body. Unwilling to let his guard down, Alex swiftly struck Eric with a single blow, knocking him unconscious as he prepared to attack again. He then carefully placed the body on the sofa. Turning to face Sebastian Shaw and the others charging at him, he secretly controlled Eric's steel ball, ready to strike at any moment. So you really can teleport? Sebastian Shaw and his men surrounded Alex. His brow furrowed slightly, a look of realization on his face. He repeated his previous question, no wonder you were able to return from Japan so quickly. Did Emma come too? While Sebastian Shaw was speaking, Alex attacked with a vengeance. Steel balls shot out like bullets, instantly wounding several people, sending screams cascading down. The sudden scream startled everyone. Sebastian Shaw turned and saw that, except for the Red Devil, everyone else behind him was injured. Each one clutched their wounds, blood streaming from between their fingers. Alex hadn't killed them, merely wounding them, rendering them incapable of fighting. Emma, come out. After injuring them, Alex immediately hid the steel balls. Sebastian Shaw, unable to identify the culprit, blamed Emma, never suspecting Alex. Alex, secretly delighted, seized the opportunity to shout, Emma, control the Red Devil first. The Red Devil, startled by these words, quickly retreated into the alternate dimension. As soon as the Red Devil vanished, Alex, like a cheetah chasing an antelope, rushed to Sebastian Shaw's side, thrusting out fists with a double dragon-like attack that struck him in the chest. Sebastian Shaw sneered at this, neither dodging nor evading. Even now, his absorption ability hadn't yet been activated. However, to Sebastian Shaw's horror, before Alex's fists could reach him, dozens of iron bars bound him like a mummy, immobilizing him and rendering his absorption power useless. Sebastian Shaw's head, the only thing exposed, was filled with astonishment. He looked at Alex with a look of disbelief. After a long pause, he finally said, "You?" At that moment, the Red Devil leaped out of the alternate dimension. Seeing Sebastian Shaw, bound like a mummy, he was visibly taken aback. He immediately realized something was wrong and tried to escape back into the alternate dimension, but the flying steel balls were already waiting for him, shooting towards his forehead and heart. The Red Devil's body stiffened, and then he fell straight to the ground, dead. Chapter 112 Mutant World War. With the Red Devil dead, Alex collapsed to the ground like a puppet drained of air, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. The hundreds of mutants in the sleeping bar had drained a significant amount of Alex's psychic energy, and with the constant fighting, Alex was lucky to have managed to stay alive. After resting on the floor for over half an hour, Alex finally regained consciousness. He slowly stood up, holding onto the table leg, and glanced around. The sleeping mutants were still asleep, the unconscious were still unconscious, but Sebastian Shaw, his eyes wide open, glared fiercely at him. He took a few steps to Sebastian Shaw's side, knocking him unconscious with a single blow. Then, using teleportation, Alex arrived at SHIELD's New York headquarters. The director's office, not very spacious, was packed with people, some standing and some sitting, all with grim expressions. The sight of Alex, especially, caused a flicker of disgust in many people's eyes. Alex had no time to pay attention to them. He stared directly at Nick and said anxiously, "Nick, Sebastian Shaw is starting World War III." Before Alex could finish, Nick reached out and interrupted him. "Alex, the war has already begun." Alex was slightly stunned and asked, "What's the situation now?" Nick stared at Alex for a long moment, sighed, and slowly said, "Humanity has suffered heavy casualties. Countries around the world have issued a joint declaration to strangle all mutants, leaving no one alive." "Nick, can you give me a moment?" Alex panicked. The global strangulation was even more terrifying than the last time. "I'll take care of everything. Trust me." "Okay, I'd love to trust you, Alex." A hint of helplessness flashed in Nick's single eye, and he shook his head. "But 3 million humans, I can't trust you." 3 million, Alex stumbled back a few steps, as if a bomb had exploded in his brain. "Thank you, Nick," Alex said, and immediately teleported away. Back at the Las Vegas bar, Alex couldn't help but slap Sebastian Shaw several times, leaving 5 red palm prints on each cheek. A trickle of blood trickled from the corner of Sebastian Shaw's mouth. Sebastian Shaw, awakened by the blow, glared at Alex with a look of fury, as if he was going to glare him to death. "Do you know what you've done?" Alex punched Sebastian Shaw again in the face, roaring, "The whole world is united in strangling us. All mutants will be exterminated because of you." Sebastian Shaw snorted with disdain, "Kill all humans. The whole world will belong to us mutants." Hearing Sebastian Shaw's outrage, Alex's fury intensified. He punched Sebastian Shaw's head left and right, repeatedly. In a few minutes, Sebastian Shaw was reduced to a pig's head. After venting his anger, Alex couldn't help but let out a long howl and punched Sebastian Shaw in the nose again, knocking him unconscious again. Looking at the bar full of mutants, Alex pondered and finally thought of a place to house them. He teleported back to Japan. Without waiting for Emma to speak, Alex teleported again, bringing Emma and Red Skull back to the wilderness, and then teleported away again. Emma stared blankly at the familiar surroundings. Thinking of the events in Japan, her heart skipped a beat, and a sense of foreboding washed over her. Just as she was panicking, Alex returned, bringing hundreds of others with him. Emma hurried forward, wanting to ask, only to find Alex's body slumped over, his voice weak. "Lock them all up." 3 days later, Alex awoke and turned to find Emma slumped over the bed, her face weary. "You're awake." Just as she was staring blankly, Emma woke up too, a look of surprise on her face. Alex propped himself up and sat up. He glanced around, confirming he was in the floating temple in the Savage Land. With a slight nod, he asked, "Where are they?" "As you ordered, they're all locked up. Not a single one has been spared." Emma, propping Alex's back with a pillow, peppered Alex with questions she'd been accumulating for days. "It's been 3 days. Do they have to stay locked up forever?" "I saw Eric. The Red Devil's dead." "What happened?" Alex gave a wry smile and asked, "Are they all okay? Are they causing any trouble?" The mutants following Sebastian Shaw couldn't be released. Doing so would only bring harm to more humans. Killing them wasn't an option. The only option was to find a way to lock them up. Alex's first thought was the floating temple. It served as the control center for the Savage Lands and the aliens' base. Perhaps to facilitate research, the temple also housed numerous observation rooms. The transparent observation room was only 10 square meters. The material, made of an unknown material, was incredibly durable. Alex had stabbed it several times with his adamantium dagger, but it hadn't left a single mark. "They're always making noise, always quarreling." Emma shook her head, a look of helplessness on her face. "There's nothing I can do. I can only put them all into hibernation." The observation room had a special method for putting the creatures inside into hibernation. "That's good," Alex sighed, recounting what had happened in Las Vegas 3 days prior and the information she'd received from Nick Fury. Emma was stunned upon hearing this news, and it took her a long time to come to her senses. "So what do we do now? Let's save as many mutants as possible." In Alex's mind, mutants were no match for humans. While they were powerful, their numbers were too small. A single spit from the world's human population could drown them. In a war with humans, the chances of victory for mutants were extremely low. Emma turned to Alex, grasped Alex's right hand with both hands, and said in a deep voice, "Take me with you. I can help a little, don't worry. Take me to see Shua." A good worker must first sharpen his tools. To save more mutants and humans, Alex needed to retrieve the Tesseract. With the Tesseract in hand, Alex's telepathic abilities would be greatly enhanced. When he saw Sebastian Shaw again, he was still in his mummy form. Worried about Alex, Emma threw everyone into the observation room and paid them no attention. They were essentially the same as they had been in. After 3 days of sleep, Alex's telepathic powers had greatly recovered. Without further ado, he began telepathically searching Sebastian Shaw's memories. By now, Alex no longer cared about Sebastian Shaw's identity. With the Hellfire Club about to be destroyed, why would he still be obsessed with the Black King? Alex's eyes narrowed slightly as he carefully searched Sebastian Shaw's memory bit by bit. After a while, he said, "Found it." He paused slightly and continued, "Let's go get the Cosmic Cube first." Chapter 113 Recovering the Cosmic Cube. Alex vanished without a moment's delay, carrying Emma away, leaving Sebastian Shaw in a daze. Only now had Sebastian Shaw truly grasped Alex's extraordinary abilities, telepathy, teleportation, combined with the extraordinary strength and resilience he demonstrated in previous battles. A deep sense of dread washed over him. "Where is this?" Emma, emerging from the void and taking in the familiar yet unfamiliar surroundings, said with a startled expression. "Isn't this the desert in Las Vegas?" Beyond the bustling casinos and bars of Las Vegas lay a barren expanse of endless gravel, barely a soul visible. Deep within this desert, Sebastian Shaw had built a simple training base, where the wave of young mutants brought back from the Soviet Union were trained. No trace of the brutal battle remained, now obscured by the sand and gravel. Alex looked around, his heart seemed to have returned to the past, and his tone of voice became low. "Yes, it's here." After a slight pause, Alex turned and pointed to a row of stone houses under the huge sandstone. He snorted coldly and said slowly, "But the real base is under the sandstone, and there is an entrance in the stone house." Emma followed Alex to the stone house and asked in confusion, "The real base?" "Yes, the base under the sandstone is very large, with factories, training grounds and other facilities." Alex pushed open the wooden door of a stone house, and the small and simple stone house was in full view, with no signs of anything unusual. "The cosmic magic is in the factory, used to manufacture the energy gun invented by Zora. All the mutants under Zio are equipped with this energy gun." Emma's eyes swept across the stone house inch by inch, and she found nothing. She turned to look at Alex in surprise. Alex chuckled and walked straight to the inner wall of the stone house. "There's an illusionist inside. Be careful when you go in." As soon as he finished speaking, Emma was surprised to see that Alex had actually passed through the wall and disappeared. Thinking about Alex's words, Emma's heart moved and she rushed through the wall at a rapid pace. Simply stepping through a door, Emma saw a brand new world appear before her eyes. The spacious and bright underground city resembled a floating temple in the wilderness, with extremely hard lines that didn't seem to be from Earth at all. "What is this?" Emma looked at Alex in shock. Alex dropped the unconscious young man and casually explained, "It's an alien city discovered by Red Skull. Zio has taken it over and moved it here." With that, Alex pulled Emma up and teleported her to the northeast corner of the alien underground city, where the energy guns were produced and the cosmic cube was located. As soon as the two appeared, hundreds of people gathered around them. Leading the charge was none other than Tessa, the sage whom Red Skull had recently introduced herself to. Her dark hair stood out among the Europeans and Americans. "Who are you?" Tessa frowned as she watched Alex and Emma suddenly intrude. Her pale blue eyes were filled with fear, and her face, neither beautiful nor ugly, wore a look of deep wariness. Any ordinary person would have been struck down with her telepathy. However, as the two appeared, Tessa had already subtly used her telepathy. Unexpectedly, she found her telepathy unable to reach them, let alone knock them down. Fight or kill, Emma ignored Tessa, secretly conversing with Alex. Alex sighed and said, "Knock them out, then take them all back and lock them up." As soon as he finished speaking, Alex took the lead, his immense telekinetic power instantly covering the entire area. His telepathy instantly hypnotized everyone, even Tessa, a telepath. In an instant, hundreds of people fell to the ground, and Emma didn't even have time to react. After knocking them down, Alex didn't stop, swiftly initiating teleportation. Alex's figure flickered in and out, appearing and disappearing throughout the factory. A moment later, Alex returned, holding a unique cube in his hand. A faint blue light shone through the cracks. Glancing down at the cosmic cube in Alex's hand, Emma asked with surprise, "Cosmic cube?" Alex nodded and said seriously, "We've found it. I'll take these people back to the floating temple first." As he spoke, Alex reached out to open the box, and one hand touched the cosmic cube, which shone with a dazzling blue light. Boosted by the cosmic cube, Alex's telekinesis rapidly expanded, instantly enveloping the entire vast alien city. Every individual was imprinted within Alex's mind. In that moment, Alex felt like the mighty ruler of this alien city, no one escaping his grasp. Alex quickly regained consciousness and activated his teleportation, instantly vanishing with the entire city. He reappeared in the floating temple's experimental base, where everyone in the alien city had been locked up in observation rooms. "Keeping these people locked up all the time isn't a good idea," Emma said, looking at the crowded observation rooms. "If anything happens again, the consequences will be disastrous." While the observation rooms were exceptionally sturdy, mutants possessed a wide variety of abilities. There was a chance they could be compromised by a peculiar mutant, which would be disastrous. "Let's keep them locked up for now, until the dust settles," Alex sighed, a look of resignation on his face. These mutants couldn't be killed, nor could they be released. But keeping them locked up like this wasn't a long-term solution. Alex had some ideas, but he was still hesitant and undecided. Unrelated text follows. Emma, unaware of Alex's thoughts, sighed softly and said, "So, let's go rescue them now." "Wait, I'll go check on Eric first." When Alex found Eric, he discovered he had woken up at some point, his cold eyes filled with hatred as he looked at Alex. Alex felt a strange pang in his heart, and sighed again. Teleporter appeared in the observation room, copied Eric's abilities, and then took Emma away. Of course, before leaving, everyone was put to sleep. Alex chose New York as their first stop. It was a hotspot for mutants and the most intense battleground. He had learned all this from the minds of SHIELD agents. Alex emerged onto the streets of New York, the thick smell of gunpowder tingling in his nostrils, a scent even more intense than that of a World War II battlefield. The streets were littered with shell casings, and the shriek of artillery fire echoed in my ears. In the distance, I saw a shell land among the bustling buildings. A massive explosion sent a tall building crumbling instantly, sending clouds of dust billowing into the sky, obscuring the sun. Alex turned his head and surveyed his surroundings, a bitter expression on his face. It seems humans are truly determined to exterminate mutants, regardless of the consequences. Chapter 114 Fire Rescue. Just as he was feeling dejected, a sudden burst of gunfire rang out, and a volley of bullets immediately swept towards Alex and Emma. Alex turned his head and looked. He had not seen a group of American soldiers emerge from the alley. The dusty American soldiers saw the two and opened fire without hesitation. With a light snort, Alex slowly raised his right hand, and hundreds of bullets immediately stopped in midair. Looking at the horrified American soldiers, Alex sighed and said loudly, "Let's go. I don't want to hurt you." The conflict between mutants and humans is separated by millions of lives, and Alex did not want to add to that number. A dozen American soldiers looked at each other, hesitated for a long time, and then slowly retreated back to the alley. Watching the American soldiers vanish with alarm, Alex turned to look at Emma beside him, sighing, then letting out another long sigh. "I'm afraid this knot will never be untied. There's always a way." Emma reached out her delicate hand, gently grasping Alex's, whispering soothingly, "Let's save the people first." Alex smiled wryly and nodded. "Let's go. I found them." His telekinesis enveloped Emma, and the two of them vanished in an instant. Reappearing, they were in a crypt covered in ruins. A group of mutants, large and small, crowded together, each face filled with fear and anger. They were not Sebastian Shaw's men, they were just ordinary mutants affected. Seeing Alex and Emma suddenly appear, a flicker of emotion flashed in the group's eyes. A burly middle-aged man stepped forward, a hint of wariness on his square face. "Who are you?" Knowing these mutants were innocent, Alex didn't forcefully take them away. Instead, he began to explain, "I'm Alex. I'm here to take you to a safe place." However, Alex's words were clearly unconvincing. No one answered, and the middle-aged man leading the group regarded him cautiously. "I'm a mutant too, and I deeply hate the Hellfire Club." Through hidden telepathy, Alex knew these people were filled with hatred for the Hellfire Club, the cause of the current situation. With a wry smile, he said, "I originally wanted to stop them, but unfortunately, I failed. Now I can only find a way to rescue more mutants." A hint of interest flashed across the middle-aged man's face. He turned and pointed at the group of mutants behind him, asking doubtfully, "There are so many of us. Are you sure you can take us away?" "Trust me, I can," Alex said, and the teleportation began. In the blink of an eye, everyone realized they were no longer in the crypt. The air around them was no longer tinged with the acrid smell of smoke and dust, it was clean. Turning their heads to survey their surroundings, they were all a little uneasy in this new world. They huddled together, following the middle-aged man. "Okay, you're safe now," Alex said, while secretly telepathically chatting with Emma. He asked, "I'm going to continue rescuing people. Emma, will you stay and watch?" Emma nodded hesitantly, agreeing, "Go ahead, I'll keep an eye on this place. I'm going to continue rescuing people. You can all stay here. It's perfectly safe." Alex turned and smiled at Emma, pointing at her and saying, "This is Emma Frost. If you have any questions, ask her." Before anyone could react, Alex vanished in a flash. "Everyone, please follow me. I'll take you to rest." The floating island was enormous, with numerous buildings, resembling a bustling city. Naturally, with plenty of places for people to live. Emma greeted them and led them out of the floating temple and towards the nearest tall building. After assigning the group, Emma returned to the floating temple. Before she could catch her breath, Alex returned with another group of people. What happened? Seeing that this group of mutants were more or less injured, Emma quickly ran a few steps to Alex, looking him up and down anxiously. "Alex, are you okay?" "Don't worry, I'm fine." Alex smiled gratefully and explained, "When I met them, they were fighting with American soldiers. Many people were injured and needed immediate treatment." After making sure that Alex was okay, Emma breathed a sigh of relief, turned her head to look at the dozen or so mutants in front of her, frowned slightly and said seriously, "I will take good care of them. You continue to be busy." As she spoke, Emma turned around and prepared to find some medical supplies. "Wait a moment." Looking at Emma who was trotting away, Alex frowned slightly. There would be more and more mutants rescued, and Emma alone was obviously too busy to handle it. Thinking of this, Alex quickly caught up with Emma and said, "Emma, why don't you call the Batman over and ask them to help?" "Oh, how could I forget them? Kiki's with them too." Emma's face lit up with joy, and she quickly called out, "Alex, go get them now. I'll be too busy otherwise." In a matter of moments, Alex had brought all the Batmen from the floating islands outside the giant floating island to the floating temple. The long unseen Charmander had grown even larger, no longer able to stand on Emma's shoulders. He could only excitedly circle around her, occasionally breathing fire. Arriving at the floating temple, the Batmen were thrilled, yet they dared not move. Their eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, their eyes brimming with excitement. Emma's telepathy immediately activated, imprinting the necessary tasks into the Batmen's minds. Batman hesitated only briefly before quickly settling into his roles. Some took the safe mutants to rest, while others busied themselves treating the injured. Everything flowed smoothly. Alex couldn't help but sigh as he watched the busy Batman. "Emma, your enlightenment is finally paying off." Emma raised her head with a hint of pride and said confidently, "I will transform this entire wilderness into a civilized land. I believe you can do it," Alex said, before disappearing again. The day passed quickly, and the sky gradually darkened. Alex ran back and forth countless times. The floating island had become crowded with people, giving it the illusion of a bustling atmosphere. The constant use of teleportation, even with the support of the cosmic cube, was beginning to wear thin, and his face turned pale. "Alex, take a rest first." Looking at Alex who seemed to be about to fall down at any time, Emma was worried. "There are endless people to be saved." If you fall down now, Alex's family knew his own affairs. In his current state, he couldn't save anyone even if he wanted to. He smiled bitterly, nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go and have a rest first, thanks to Ziming for the monthly ticket support. It's Scorpio's first monthly ticket. Thank you very much." Chapter 115 The Observer reappears. After saying goodbye to Emma, Alex found a random room and lay down in it. Just as he was about to close his eyes and rest, a familiar figure suddenly appeared from the sky, his sleek bald head like a lamp. "Observer, you finally showed up." Alex jumped up from the bed with a somersault, and in one leap, he tried to grab the observer. But Alex soon found that he was frozen. To be more precise, the entire space and time had been frozen. His body remained in the leaping position, suspended in midair, looking very funny. "Did you see that, Alex?" Otto snorted coldly. With a wave of his right hand, a series of pictures suddenly appeared in the air, pictures of war, mutants and humans. 6 million humans and nearly 1 million mutants have died because of your appearance? Alex glared at Otto with resentment, and for a long time he did not speak, a hint of guilt on his face. "Don't speak? Or don't dare to speak." Otto was obviously not going to let Alex go like this, and continued to scold. "Do you feel guilty now? But what's the use? Why do you have to blame all this on me?" Alex seemed to be unable to bear it, his face flushed red, and he shouted angrily, "How do you know there is no other possibility? Because of my arrival, this number has been reduced a lot. Maybe he originally had tens of millions. You don't need to quibble, all the fault is on you." Otto was stunned for a moment, then continued with a cold face, "Come with me, leave this world, and let it return to its original track." Alex shook his head firmly. "No, I won't go. I didn't choose to stay at the beginning, and now I will not choose to leave. There are still many people who need me to save. Leave here, I will deal with those people myself, and I guarantee that there will be no problems." Otto waved his hand, and the bronze medal on his chest flashed slightly, and the restraints on Alex disappeared. Alex was shocked and suddenly remembered Otto's incredible powerful ability. He suddenly shouted, "Can you save them?" After a pause of 1 second, the hoarse voice sounded again, "You can save them. Why not?" "Why not? Observer law stipulates that you may not interfere with others and things in the universe." The expression on Otto's face did not change at all. Alex pointed at Otto and hurled a scathing curse, "Screw the law. The law says you can't help? The law says you can watch 7 million people die?" Otto's face darkened slightly. After a moment's silence, he said, "Observer law." Seeing Otto's stubborn adherence to observer law, Alex's rage seemed to have no outlet. He interrupted Otto with a loud shout, "Since the law says you can't interfere, why do you keep hounding me?" Before Otto could reply, Alex interrupted him again, "You're an observer, so be a good observer. Stay out of Earth's affairs. Who knows if it was you who wiped the world's memory and sparked this war?" Alex's last remark was just a casual complaint, but it frightened Otto so much that his face turned pale and panicked. Without even a moment's hesitation, he vanished. Alex couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief as he looked at the empty room. Once again, Alex's power surpassed his expectations. With a single wave of his hand, he imprisoned him, rendering his teleportation, absorption, and other abilities useless. He was incredibly powerful. The thought of defeating such an unfathomable master and avenging him was a daunting prospect. Lying in bed, Alex couldn't rest. His mind replaying Otto's words, 6 million humans and nearly 1 million mutants have perished because of your presence. Though Otto had been easily fooled by his words, Alex couldn't help but wonder if he was truly to blame for this tragedy. Alex hadn't read the comics, so he could only recall the few films he had seen. The few X-Men films didn't seem to depict this war. The only conflict between mutants and humans seemed to have occurred during the Cuban Missile Crisis, more than a decade before. Is it really because of me? Alex tossed and turned, his eyes wide open, his expression shifting, a series of emotions flashing through his face before settling on a single firm expression. Since it's me, I'll find a way to change it. At this thought, Alex recalled the movie and the promise he'd made to Eric. In his previous life, Alex had been deeply disgusted by the hardline Magneto, who advocated for the extermination of humanity and the creation of a mutant world. As a human, how could Alex possibly agree? But Alex was equally displeased with a moderate Professor X. He was too weak, constantly compromising and avoiding, ultimately leading to the near extinction of his entire race. Ultimately, Wolverine had to travel back in time to reverse the future. In this world, Alex had become a mutant, though most of the time, Alex considered himself human. However, after certain experiences, Alex began to face his mutant identity, especially after witnessing Eric's plight. Alex began to ponder the future of mutants and humans, hoping for a future where humans and mutants could walk the streets together as good friends. However, after experiencing the war between mutants and humans, Alex realized that it was all wishful thinking. Although Sebastian Shaw had initiated the war, it's important to understand that the hatred between humans and mutants wasn't built overnight. A 3-foot-thick ice doesn't form overnight. Mutants and humans being friends is like white people and black people being equal. It's simply impossible. Even in 2014, with the ostensible promise of racial equality, freedom, and democracy, in reality, vast differences between whites and blacks remain, and discrimination persists. Perhaps I should learn from Professor X. After a moment of wandering thoughts, Alex's mind drifted to an image, a bald man sitting in a wheelchair with a benevolent smile. The wise Professor X had found the right direction for mutants. Although there had been some missteps along the way, overall, under his guidance, mutants lived a very safe life, especially the X-School and the X-Men. The more he thought about it, the more excited Alex became. He couldn't help but jump up from the bed, gesticulating and saying, "No matter what, we must first establish the X-Academy and the X-Men." At this moment, Emma pushed the door open and walked in. Seeing Alex with an excited look on his face, he asked in surprise, "Alex, what are you doing?" "Emma, I want to establish an X-Academy specifically to guide mutants and teach them to be good." Alex pulled Emma aside and told her his idea. "Don't you like being a teacher? Why don't you be the dean of the X-Academy?" Emma was not excited at all. Looking at Alex with red eyes and full of worry, she forced Alex onto the bed and said seriously, "Let's talk about this later. You need to rest now." Without waiting for Alex to get up, her telepathy immediately took effect. Alex, exhausted, was caught off guard and was instantly hypnotized by Emma. He obediently closed his eyes and soon began to snore softly. Looking at Alex, who was sleeping soundly, Emma breathed a sigh of relief with a gentle smile on her face. "Dean of X Academy, that sounds great. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 116 Changes. After only 3 hours of sleep, Alex leaped out of bed. 3 hours of rest wouldn't restore him to peak form, and even a second's delay would mean more casualties. 3 hours of rest was already a luxury. Without a moment's pause, Alex teleported out of the room, ready for another day of rescue operations. Alex was grateful that after a day of fierce fighting, both humans and mutants had agreed to a temporary truce. The humans needed to redeploy their forces, while the mutants did because they had finally discovered Sebastian Shaw's disappearance. Somewhere in the United States, at the Hellfire Club's secret headquarters, a dozen or so people sat around a long table, their faces slightly heavy, and the atmosphere was strange. "What do we do now, Black Queen?" At that, everyone's gaze turned to the head of the table. A dark-haired woman sat reclining in a high-backed chair, her long black dress fluttering in the wind. After the disappearance of Sebastian Shaw and his immediate subordinates, the Black Queen had become the most powerful figure in the Hellfire Club. Seeing the Black Queen's silence, the speaker grew increasingly anxious and asked again, "Zio hasn't been seen, and there's no news from Zions. What should we do?" "Shut up." The Black Queen suddenly raised her head, a fierce gleam in her gloomy eyes. With a slight lift of her right hand, the speaker instantly levitated, gradually drifting to the Black Queen's side. As the femme fatale drew closer, the speaker's face darkened with fear, his body struggling, his pleas for mercy incessant. Unfortunately, the Black Queen remained unmoved. A fierce smile appeared on her face, and she slowly said, "Dead, there's nothing to worry about." As she spoke, the speaker rapidly aged, instantly dissolving into dust and scattering to the ground. Watching the Black Queen execute a man without hesitation, everyone at the long table trembled uncontrollably, their heads practically ducking beneath the table, not daring to even look at the Black Queen. The Black Queen clearly relished the fear they displayed. A smug grin spread across her beautiful face. "Now, I am the Supreme King of the Hellfire Club," no one dared to object, nodding their heads. "Sebastian Shaw is a madman, but I am not." The Black Queen's sharp gaze swept over the crowd. She slowly stood up, her long hair dancing like the legendary Medusa. Stop fighting immediately. All members of the club must or retreat. That won't work. The human army has us dead on. Under the pressure of the Black Queen's gaze, someone finally summoned the courage to speak. Even if we wanted to retreat, there's no way. It would only increase casualties. The Black Queen's expression darkened, and she turned to look at the person who had spoken. Didn't you hear me clearly? I was talking about the members of the club. Everyone else, stay. Everyone stared at each other in bewilderment, but no one dared to speak. Only the young man who had just spoken could not help but stand up, shouting angrily, "They will!" This war between mutants and humans was sparked by the Hellfire Club, and the main force in the war was also mutants from the Hellfire Club, but in terms of numbers, the majority were ordinary mutants not from the club. With the Hellfire Club's withdrawal, ordinary mutants would be in dire straits, and the death toll would skyrocket. The voice stopped abruptly, and the young man fell to the ground in a pile of dust. Anyone else have any objections? The Black Queen clapped her hands gently, her face becoming even more delicate. After saving thousands of people in a row, Alex felt a little tired again. He sat on the floor of the floating temple, drinking the juice that Emma had prepared long ago. It was squeezed from special fruits from the wild land and was said to be refreshing. Alex slurped up the juice in the glass, turned his head to look at Emma beside him, and asked casually, "Emma, what do you think about what I told you before?" Emma was slightly stunned, but soon understood, nodded and replied with a smile, "Very good, I support you, that's good," Alex said while teasing the Charmander Kiki. "While we have free time and there are many people, let's build the academy on this floating island." As he spoke, Alex suddenly stopped, pondered for a moment and continued, "If there are not enough people, just find one from those people. I think many people will like it." "That middle-aged uncle seems very good." Emma looked at Alex blankly, and asked hesitantly, "You want me to do it?" "Of course, you are the Dean of X Academy. If you don't go, who'll go?" Alex said casually, and poked a finger into Kiki's mouth as if mischievously, causing Kiki to scream. "Huh?" Emma screamed again. Just as she was about to speak, she realized Alex had disappeared. Staring at the empty temple, Emma suddenly stood up, picked up Kiki, and strode out of the floating temple, muttering to herself, "Alex, I won't let you down." The floating island was packed with buildings, and finding a place for Academy X was a challenge due to the lack of large, open spaces. After much thought, Emma suddenly thought of the experimental base where Sebastian Shaw and the others were imprisoned. It had a spacious area and many advanced equipment, making it a perfect location for Academy X. But then another problem struck Emma, and she felt troubled. What about those people? The experimental base had many observation rooms, which were now used as prisons for many mutants from the Hellfire Club. As Emma considered her choice of location for Academy X, Alex noticed something amiss. The mutants' firepower suddenly weakened, and the energy spears that had been wreaking havoc on the humans vanished. Only a group of uncombatant mutants remained, desperately resisting the human attacks. "Where's the Hellfire Club?" Alex quickly realized. Did they surrender? After returning to the floating temple with a group of people, Alex didn't go to the battlefield to rescue them. Instead, he went to SHIELD headquarters. The director's office was empty, except for Nick Fury, who sat in a chair with a gloomy face, seemingly lost in thought. Alex tapped the table gently, startling Nick Fury. Then he asked, "Nick, what happened?" "What?" Nick Fury looked at Alex in surprise, then shook his head and said slowly, "Same old story." Unsure if Nick Fury truly didn't know or just didn't want to say, Alex asked bluntly, "The Hellfire Club withdrew. Did they surrender?" "What did you say, Alex?" Nick Fury suddenly stood up, his dark face filled with disbelief. "The Hellfire Club withdrew? You didn't know?" Nick Fury's expression didn't seem fake, and it made Alex's heart skip a beat. A sense of unease crept in. The Hellfire Club had withdrawn, but SHIELD didn't know yet. Clearly, it wasn't the Hellfire Club's surrender. But they disappeared, so. The more he thought about it, the more panicked Alex became. He dared not stay any longer. He rushed to the battlefield and began a frenzied abduction, without warning or regard for their consent. Chapter 117 X Academy. Looking at the empty space across from him, Nick Fury almost thought he'd just imagined it. It took him a long moment to react, and he shouted, "Someone!" As soon as Nick Fury finished speaking, Carter stepped in. Without even glancing at Nick Fury, he lowered his head and began to report. According to the agent's report, the Hellfire Club mutants, They've retreated. Nick Fury finally confirmed that it wasn't an illusion. Alex had really been there. Carter looked up at Nick Fury with surprise. Alex just came here, he told me. Carter nodded, his face unmoved by surprise. After a moment's silence, he asked, "So what are you going to do now?" "The Hellfire Club has retreated, right, Carter, we're just intelligence." A flicker of helplessness flashed in Nick Fury's single eye. He sighed and interrupted Carter, knowing what he was about to say. "We're only responsible for providing intelligence to the government. We have no power to influence specific decisions. They're innocent. Are we just going to watch them die?" Carter felt pity, tears welling in his beautiful eyes. Nick Fury smiled wryly and shook his head. "Send the news to the government and advise them not to exterminate all mutants, lest they provoke a desperate counterattack." He sighed again, then continued with a self-deprecating laugh. "It's probably useless to say anything. They won't listen. Just do your best." Looking up at Carter, Nick Fury uttered his final words helplessly. As Nick Fury had predicted, when the news reached the government, the local governments ignored his advice and continued their mutant hunting spree, intensifying it. Without the support of the Hellfire Club's core mutants, the war became one-sided, and mutant casualties steadily mounted. Alex, driven mad, worked tirelessly to rescue people. After 5 days of relentless work, he finally collapsed, his psychic energy exhausted, and he fell into coma. Emma was deeply concerned, but she forged ahead, organizing others to take over Alex's burden and continue the rescue efforts. Compared to Alex, armed with a cosmic cube, the others' rescue speed was noticeably slower. In a single day, the group had only saved less than 1,000 people. Of course, this was largely due to the near end of the war. With the Hellfire Club's sudden withdrawal, the humans launched a powerful offensive, leaving the mutants powerless to resist. A large number were strangled. Some, disguised themselves, hid among humans, while others fled into the inaccessible jungles, far from humans. After 3 full days of sleep, Alex finally awoke. His first act was to rescue people, his swollen eyes bloodshot. "It's over." Emma pushed Alex back onto the bed, her pretty face etched with anger. "Everyone who can be saved has been saved. You don't have to go anymore." Alex paused for a moment before regaining consciousness. With bloodshot eyes, he looked up at Emma and asked hesitantly, "It's over, it's over." "The war is over?" Emma smiled faintly, repeating the phrase several times. Alex's eyes dimmed, and he asked in a low voice, "How many people did I save?" Emma felt a little strange, but she answered honestly, "About 500,000, 500,000, compared to the entire mutant population on Earth." That number, Alex choked up as he spoke, his voice replaying the observer's words, 6 million humans and nearly 1 million mutants, all killed because of you. Noticing Alex's gloom, Emma quickly changed the subject with a smile. "Alex, I've already built Academy X." Built? Alex's attention was drawn, pleasantly surprised. Everyone was so excited when they heard about the construction of Academy X. It was all thanks to everyone's help that the Academy was built so quickly. Emma smiled as she recounted the recent construction of Academy X, detailing every detail, leaving out every last detail. "The experimental base? I think it's where Zio and the others are being held." Hearing that Academy X was located at the experimental base, Alex couldn't help but feel a little worried. Emma smiled softly and said confidently, "Don't worry, I didn't touch them. I'm keeping them as negative examples." "That's a great idea." Alex couldn't help but laugh, thinking of Sebastian Shaw being mocked like a monkey. "I bet Shaw's face must have turned black with rage." Emma laughed along, adding a sardonic sarcasm, "I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't told me, but Shaw's face seems to have gotten a little darker." After a moment's laughter, Alex asked again, "How's the academy going now? Is it crowded?" Emma couldn't help but rub her head and complain to Alex, "There are a lot of people, but only a few can teach. Most people don't even understand their mutant abilities. I can't handle it all by myself." Listening to Emma's rambling, Alex frowned. Teaching staff is indeed a problem. In the movie, Professor X's X Institute has quite a few teachers: Professor X, Jean Grey, Storm, and Cyclops. Oh, I almost forgot about Wolverine Logan. He also occasionally makes guest appearances as a teacher. It's a shame, except for Wolverine, the others aren't even born yet or are just children. More importantly, Alex has no idea where they are right now, or whether they're alive or dead. Logan, I should get him over here to help. Thinking of Logan, Alex suddenly remembered something he'd forgotten. Wolverine's son has been staying at SHIELD. I need to bring him over too. Let's first find someone to mentor them and help them become qualified teachers. With a shortage of teachers, Alex could only think of this solution. They might not be as good at first, but with time, they'll become qualified teachers. Emma nodded, a look of resignation on her face. That's all we can do. Alex gave Emma a few more instructions, kissed her, and whispered, Emma, go ahead and do your thing. I need to pick someone up. Emma was a little surprised, but she didn't ask, returning the kiss passionately. Alex, you're here again. Alex had just appeared at the SHIELD headquarters when Natasha's sexy voice rang in his ears. Alex turned his head and saw Natasha leaning on the sofa, with thick bandages wrapped around her waist and abdomen. He couldn't help but feel a little surprised. What's wrong? Are you injured? Natasha rolled her eyes charmingly and said with a wry smile, I ran into Bucky and got shot, but I can't die. Bucky? Alex was a little surprised. Where is he? The Soviet Union. But unfortunately, there has been no trace since then. Hearing Natasha say this, Alex was slightly disappointed. Then he remembered the purpose of his visit and asked, any news about Logan? Chapter 118 Zio Luo Luo. Logan. Natasha spread her hands, a look of resignation on her face. I haven't seen him since we parted in Japan, nor have I heard anything about him. He wasn't present during the Great War between mutants and humans. Nick Fury interjected, seeming somewhat regretful. Alex's face darkened at Nick Fury's words, and he couldn't help but ask, what are the casualties? What about the captured mutants? Some mutants were killed on the spot during the war, while others were captured. Alex, don't worry about it. You've already saved many people. Nick Fury, worried about what Alex might do, remained silent. Alex smiled bitterly, shook his head, and said, I just want to know what's happening to them. I don't want humans to use them for experiments. Alex remembered that many humans experimented on mutants, the Stryker family being the most notable. Don't worry, no one would do that. Nick Fury's expression changed slightly, and he said seriously, if anyone dares to do that, I will definitely stop them. I hope so. A momentary silence fell, and after a long moment, Alex finally remembered his other goal. Where's Logan's son? Where is he? Alex turned to look at Natasha. He and Natasha had brought the child back together, so Natasha should know everything. Ask Nick about that. He arranged it. Natasha turned to look at Nick Fury. Nick Fury had clearly forgotten about the child. After a long pause, he came to his senses and said uncertainly, I don't know either. It was Carter who arranged it. What do you want from me? Coincidentally, Carter walked in, glanced at everyone in the room, and finally set his sights on Alex. Alex, you're the one Hollywood is looking for with a bounty, right? What? Carter's words successfully captured everyone's attention, and the previous question was temporarily forgotten. Hollywood is offering a $1 million reward for the mysterious storyteller. Alex, Carter pulled out a movie poster from among a pile of papers. It showed an old man riding a bicycle with a laughing child perched on the front crossbar. Next to the poster was the English word Cinema Paradiso. In a large blank space in the corner of the simple poster, a phrase was written in large English letters, highlighted in bright red, the third film by the mysterious storyteller Alex. The war between humans and mutants lasted only a few days, sparking a wave of anti-war enthusiasm in Hollywood, but it had no real impact. Those who were still making movies continued to make them, those who were still showing them continued to show them, and those who were still going to the theaters continued to go. What does this mean? Natasha was still confused. Alex, however, understood. This Cinema Paradiso was one of the many movie stories he had left behind at Vivian Lee's house. From Carter's perspective, it seemed as if his story had caused quite a stir in Hollywood. So it really is you? Seeing Alex's expression, Carter reacted and said in amazement, I didn't expect you to have such a skill. Alex was very curious. He picked up the poster and looked at it carefully, while saying, is my script very popular? Every one of your movies is constantly breaking box office records, otherwise you wouldn't be used as a promotional poster. Carter raised the corner of his mouth and said enviously, the whole Hollywood is looking for you and is even offering a $1 million reward. Do you think it's popular? It's indeed very popular. Alex smiled a little proudly and brought the topic back. By the way, Carter, do you know where Logan's child is now? Of course I know. What's wrong? Carter looked at Alex, and instantly came to his senses. He quickly said, don't worry, little Luo Luo will be fine. My sister likes him very much. Seeing everyone's surprised expressions, Carter smiled and explained, since Logan is not here, I gave him a nickname so it's convenient to call him. He's a mutant after all. It's not safe for him to stay in the human world. Alex trusted Carter to take good care of Logan's son, but after the war between humans and mutants, humans hated mutants to the core. While nothing had gone wrong, the future was uncertain. For his safety and growth, I want to take him with me. Alex's words silenced the three of them. Although Carter was reluctant, he nodded and said, okay, I'll take him over right away. About 10 minutes later, Carter returned, holding a 3 or 4-year-old child in his arms. What's this? Alex was surprised. The child had only been born when he was brought here. How could he have grown so big in just a short time? I don't know why, but little Lualuo is growing so fast. Seeing the surprise in everyone's eyes, Carter reached out and pinched the child's cheek, chuckling softly. It won't be long before little Lualuo grows into a young man. Alex couldn't help but reach out and take the child from Carter's arms, teasing him carefully. He looked so much like Logan. Little Lualuo's appearance was truly like his father, especially his eyes, which seemed to be cast from the same mold as Logan's. I remember you. Alex was speaking when little Lualuo suddenly spoke, startling Alex so much that his hand shook and he almost dropped him to the ground. I don't know if it's an ability inherited from Logan, or if little Lualuo is born with it, but little Lualuo can speak at a very young age. Carter reached out and took little Lualuo from the frightened Alex's arms, and began to explain. Don't look at him being only 1 year old, he has the body of a 3 or 4-year-old child, and the intelligence of a 7 or 8-year-old child. He's very powerful. At this moment, little Lualuo stretched out his chubby little hand again, pointed at Alex, and said crisply, I remember him, Aunt Carter. Hearing Carter's words, Alex couldn't help but feel a little fondness and confidence in little Lualuo, and laughed and teased, Little Lualuo, do you really remember me? Then do you know my name? You are Alex, my father Logan, and the best brother. Little Lualuo is really different. He has memories before he was born. It was you who rescued me from my mother's womb and sent me here. Alex didn't know what to say. He turned to look at Nick Fury and Natasha, and said with anticipation, I think he will be even more powerful than Logan when he grows up. Of course, before Nick Fury and Natasha could respond, little Rollo couldn't help but raise his head and speak confidently. Wolverine's son is called Dickon, which means mutt, not a very good name. Scorpio decided to change the name. Little Rollo is just a nickname, so everyone should brainstorm and give suggestions for the full name. Also, starting today, I'll resume 2 updates a day, with occasional 3 updates. Chapter 119 Reminiscing the Past. Despite not receiving any news from Logan, Alex brought little Rollo back to the wilderness, and Carter and the others didn't try to stop him. While the war between humans and mutants was over, humanity's hatred for mutants wouldn't fade anytime soon. If Rollo stayed in human society, something would happen to him sooner or later, so having him with Alex was a blessing. Who's this? Emma's face changed when she saw Alex returning with a child, and a hint of indescribable emotion crossed her gaze as she looked at Alex. Rollo, looking at the beautiful woman before him, suddenly had a playful thought and cried out, Mom! Alex's hands trembled in fear, and he nearly dropped Rollo. He looked down at the smiling Rollo, his expression grim. Just as he was about to scold her, Emma laughed. So you're Logan's son. Emma was no fool. After a moment's distraction, she snapped back to her senses. She took a closer look at little Rollo and recognized him. She reached out and pinched Rollo's chubby cheeks. You're so naughty at such a young age. You'll definitely be a troublemaker when you grow up. The little fire dragon, Shishi, flapped its fleshy wings and quickly flew over, circling Rollo several times, its red eyes filled with curiosity. Alex had rescued quite a few mutants, but few as young as Rollo. Shishi, Rollo's care is in your hands from now on, Emma said with a grin, reaching down to pull Shishi down and pointing at the equally stunned Rollo. Shishi nodded excitedly, rubbing his little head gently against Rollo. Rollo reached out and gently patted Shishi's head, equally excited. Shishi suddenly rolled over, flapping a wing, signaling Rollo to climb aboard. Little Lualuo was stunned for a moment, then staggered to his feet, took a few steps, and climbed steadily onto Kiki's back. Charmander was now only about the same size as little Lualuo, but was much stronger. He carried little Lualuo and flew up easily. Little Lualuo, sitting astride Kiki's back, was so excited that he forgot to speak and could only babble and roared strangely. Watching the man and the dragon quickly disappear into the floating temple, Alex chuckled and turned to look at Emma, Originally, I wanted to find Logan, but unfortunately he has been missing for a long time and there is no news at all. Forget it, take your time. Emma sighed, shrugged and said helplessly, but you have to come and help, otherwise I really can't handle it. Alex's face was bitter when he heard this. It was no longer Chinese for him to fight and save people, but it would be difficult for him to teach and educate people. He dropped a word and scurried off. Emma, you'll have to bear the burden of X Academy. I'll let it go. Leaving the floating temple, Alex was contemplating where to go to pass the time when Carter's remark at Nick Fury's place suddenly struck him. Alex decided to go see if there were still people he cared about there, even if they had forgotten him. Hollywood's nights were far from quiet. From the brightly lit streets, a variety of noises could be heard from afar, the impatient roars of crews working the late shift, the vibrant dance music from the bars. Shaking his head to dispel the chaotic noises, Alex looked up at the apartment before him. This was the one he'd originally prepared for Audrey, and not far from Vivian Lee's home. The lights were on, clearly occupied. Alex didn't intend to disturb her, fearing he'd frightened the angel again. With a flick of his wrist, he appeared at the window sill, his hands clasped tightly against the cracks between the bricks, and peeked inside. To Alex's surprise, not only Ella and Audrey were in the house, but also Vivian Lee and Monroe, all four of them wearing strange expressions. What happened? Alex worried, scanning the room carefully. A teleportation had entered the house directly through the window, hiding in a dark corner, invisible to the four people in the room. Vivian Lee, sitting upright, turned to look at the other three and said in a low voice, "Still no news from him? That's normal. Brother is not an ordinary person. He wouldn't care about such a small amount of money." Audrey, sitting cross-legged on the sofa with a pillow in her arms, glanced at Vivian Lee and said matter-of-factly, "Brother must be busy fighting the bad guys right now, hidden in the darkness." Alex listened more and more, feeling something was wrong. He felt Audrey might have remembered something. The thought stirred Alex, and he wanted to step forward, but reason told him to wait. "Audrey, maybe." Ella looked at her daughter with some concern, hesitating for a moment before continuing, "Maybe all this is just your imagination. It doesn't even exist." Ever since she'd witnessed a mutant versus American GI battle a few days earlier, Ella had noticed her daughter had become possessed, constantly calling out a single name, Alex. She kept insisting he was her brother, inventing countless outlandish stories, which worried Ella deeply. Ella told Vivian Lee about this, and surprisingly, she joined Audrey's quest. It turned out that Alex had left her numerous film scripts, including several hits. Both claimed to be very familiar with this Alex, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't imagine his appearance. Vivian Lee even offered a $1 million reward for information leading to his discovery, which Ella considered completely insane. "Mom, it was my brother who saved us." Audrey looked at her mother helplessly, a hint of pain in her bright eyes. No one knew, but she knew the feeling was too unbearable. "Mom, it was my brother who went through so much hardship to bring us from the war-torn Netherlands to America." Although she had said this many times, Audrey still earnestly instilled it in her mother. "We went through so many twists and turns, and my brother almost lost his life, but he still sent us here and prepared a house for us." "Audrey," Ella couldn't help but interrupt Audrey. She felt like she was going crazy if she continued like this. Monroe, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke, a hint of sadness on her bright face. "Brother, I don't remember much, but I do remember." Monroe turned to look at Vivian Lee and smiled sweetly. "I remember that brother found 3 important people to guarantee me, and that's how he adopted me. One of them was me." Vivian Lee continued, a faint smile appearing on her face as if she had remembered something. "The other one was Director Victor, but I have no idea who the other one was." At the end of her words, the smile on Vivian Lee's face disappeared, replaced by deep confusion and bewilderment. An illness had completely devastated Scorpio. Today was the 3rd day, and he was feeling slightly better, but his forehead was still burning and his body was a little weak. "I'll just have to keep updating for now. I'll definitely make up for it later." Chapter 120 The Disappearing Mist. "I think you've all gone crazy," Ella couldn't help but shout, watching the 3 women grow increasingly obsessed. She stood up and was about to leave. Just a few steps away, she suddenly spotted a figure standing in the shadows. She screamed, "Ah!" with a startling, earth-shattering shriek. Alex, stunned by Audrey and the other two's words, remained dazed until Ella stood up, but it was too late. He'd already been discovered. With a wry smile, Alex could only step out of the shadows. Ella's scream also startled Audrey and the other two. They looked over and saw a figure emerging from the darkness. Under the bright light of the living room, the figure became increasingly clear, a face both familiar and unfamiliar forming in their minds. All three women were stunned, frozen for a moment before shouting in unison, "Alex!" Alex looked at the three women, his eyes gradually moistening. He opened his mouth to call out their names, but no words came out. "Are you really Alex?" This was Vivian Lee's voice, a little excited, and with a hint of doubt. Just as Alex was about to speak, Audrey said in a decisive tone, "He is my brother." As she spoke, she pounced into Alex's arms. Feeling the delicate body in his arms, Alex was overwhelmed with emotions. He had thought that he would never be able to make them remember him again in his lifetime, but he did not expect that it would be a blessing in disguise. The war between humans and mutants accidentally restored their memories. Although it was only some incomplete fragments, Alex was already very satisfied. "Brother, Audrey really missed you." Audrey put her arms around Alex's waist, raised her little head from Alex's arms, and a layer of mist covered her bright eyes. Alex was finally able to speak. He bent down and gently kissed Audrey's forehead, saying, unable to contain himself, "I missed you, too, Audrey. Life is like chocolate." Hearing the voice, Alex turned his head and looked over. Vivian Lee was looking at him nervously, her lips trembling slightly, and her voice trembling. "Life is like chocolate. You never know what you're going to get." This is a line from the movie Forrest Gump, one of the few movie lines Alex remembered, and it was also written into the movie story Alex left for Vivian Lee. Alex knew Vivian was trying to use this method to determine if he was real or fake. Seeing Vivian's growing excitement, he chuckled and said, "Forrest Gump, but now's not the right time to film it." Seeing the smile on Alex's face, Vivian smiled back, her excitement gradually fading. She nodded and said, "Victor felt the same way." Monroe was still a little slow to react. Her beautiful eyes darted between Alex and Vivian, finally landing on Audrey, who was hugging each other. Alex felt an inexplicable pang of anger, and instinctively rushed forward, forcing half a body length from Audrey and squeezing into Alex's arms. Looking down at Audrey and Monroe, huddled together in his arms, Alex felt a sense of both laughter and tears. Upon regaining consciousness from her coma, Mrs. Ella saw Audrey and Monroe trapped in the arms of a strange man. Terrified, she threatened, "Let go of Audrey and Monroe immediately, or I'll..." "Mom, he's Alex," Audrey said helplessly, seeing her mother's anger mixed with fear. Mrs. Ella didn't believe her daughter. She knew some people possessed special abilities that allowed them to control others, and she already associated Alex with them. "Dear Mrs. Ella, I apologize for the intrusion." Regardless of Mrs. Ella's reaction, Alex maintained his usual respectful greeting. Unfortunately, this didn't dispel Mrs. Ella's wariness. She continued her threat, "Let them go, or I'll call the police." Alex gave a bitter smile, gently pushed aside the resentful Audrey and Monroe, and turned to Vivian Lee. "The other guarantor is Howard Stark. He should have a record with the Brooklyn Police Department." With that, Alex vanished. Although Audrey and the other two believed him, Mrs. Ella remained skeptical, much to Alex's dismay. He hoped they would recall more, find more evidence to prove his claims, so that he could appear openly here instead of sneaking around. "He's gone?" Mrs. Ella asked, puzzled, turning around and glancing around. Seeing no sign of Alex, she asked, somewhat bewildered. Audrey glared at her mother, angrily saying, "It's all your fault. You drove my brother away." Mrs. Ella glared at Audrey, patting her chest with lingering fear. She slowly sat down on the sofa and sighed. Finally, "He's gone." Alex's sudden disappearance made Vivian Lee feel lost, and her expression was a little dazed. When she suddenly heard what Mrs. Ella said, she suddenly remembered Alex's last words, and she suddenly woke up, with a look of joy. "Mrs. Ella, since you don't believe her, let's go to New York." "What are we going to New York for?" Obviously, Mrs. Ella didn't hear what Alex said last. When she heard Vivian Lee's words, she was a little surprised. There's evidence there, evidence of Alex's existence, not to mention that the women packed their luggage to go to New York. Alex had already appeared in New York at this moment, in a hidden laboratory under the Stark Industries building. This is Howard's exclusive laboratory, and it is also the most hidden and best equipped laboratory. No matter who you are, get out of here right now. Howard was wearing a tight protective suit, with a large hood on his head like a beekeeper, and carrying a chainsaw-like device in both hands, as if he was ready to cut something. No mistake. Alex's gaze quickly shifted from Howard to a piece of silver-white metal on the lab table, feeling vaguely familiar. Adamantium. The silver-white metal gave Alex the same feeling as the dagger he carried with him and the shield in Steve's hand. Alex, hearing the voice, Howard stopped, took off the hood on his head, turned to look at Alex, with a look of surprise. After confirming that the person coming was really Alex, Howard pointed to the piece of silver-white metal on the lab table and said mysteriously, "This is not adamantium, but vibranium, vibranium that can absorb energy?" After spending a long time with Howard, Alex also knew some things. His dagger and Steve's shield were both made of raw adamantium and vibranium. The adamantium gave them the ability to be indestructible, while the vibranium made them even more powerful. Howard nodded and explained casually, "No one knows the source of vibranium, but recently an unmanned ship suddenly appeared in Antarctica, with a lot of vibranium piled on it." As he spoke, Howard couldn't help laughing. All this vibranium was accepted. "We are so lucky." Antarctica. Alex was shocked and immediately thought of his own place to stay. Without waiting for Alex to think about it, Howard turned and asked, "By the way, why did you suddenly think of coming to me? Someone may come to you in a few days to ask about me." Alex came back to his senses instantly after hearing this, and said calmly, "Tell them everything you know, without leaving out a single detail. Has anyone recovered their memory? I've recovered a little, and came to confirm with you. Don't worry, I will make them believe you. Thank you." Thanks to Xianxiang for the monthly ticket. Scorpio will continue to work hard. Thank you for your support. Chapter 121 Atlantis. After bidding farewell to Howard, Alex hurried back to the Savage Land. The information Howard inadvertently revealed shocked Wang Xia. Alex had reason to believe that the unmanned ship carrying vibranium had drifted from the Savage Land. Upon closer examination, the origin of the vibranium on the unmanned ship became clear. Without alerting anyone, Alex went straight to the floating temple's archive, which housed all the information on the Savage Land. If vibranium existed in the Savage Land, evidence would surely be found here. But the thought of the archive gave Alex a headache. The information wasn't on paper, but rather stored in a massive machine similar to the first computers on Earth. The vast amount of data was stored haphazardly, and without a search engine, finding the information he was looking for was incredibly difficult. Just as Alex was scowling, Emma suddenly appeared, her face filled with surprise. "Alex, what are you doing here? I found something and need to look it up." Alex shrugged, looking at Emma helplessly, and gestured to the massive computer in front of him. Emma was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. "Can't find it?" She tilted her head slightly to glance at the boy behind her, a meaningful smile on her face. Alex, not noticing the boy beside Emma, shook his head with a wry smile, and dove into the massive computer, ready to search. "There's just too much information. I just can't seem to find it. Perhaps I can help." Emma finally managed to laugh at Alex's scowl. Alex turned around at the sound and looked at Emma in surprise. "Let me introduce you to someone," Emma said, pushing the boy behind her forward and pointing at him. "This is Cooper. He can connect to any electronic device and control it." Alex stared in amazement at the plain, slightly timid boy before him. After a long pause, he exclaimed, "That's amazing." Cooper glanced up at Alex furtively. A flicker of pride crossed his face as he heard Alex's words. He stammered softly, "Master Alex, what information are you looking for?" "Vibranium." "Anything related to vibranium?" Alex couldn't help but burst into laughter before speaking. Cooper nodded, took a few steps forward, reached for the massive computer, and then closed his eyes, as if sensing something. In a moment, a directory appeared on the screen, detailing every item with the word vibranium in it. "This machine is very advanced. It actually has an automatic search function." Cooper opened his eyes, turned to look at Alex, and explained, his face slightly gloomy. "But it requires a specific audio frequency to activate it, and unfortunately, I haven't found what that frequency is." "That's okay." Alex waved his hand, eagerly turning to the computer screen and carefully checking the directory. "Just find these." Emma gently patted Cooper's shoulder and whispered a few words of comfort. Then she turned to Alex and asked in surprise, "Is there vibranium here?" Emma had learned a lot from her time with Sebastian Shaw, and she had heard a little about vibranium. Legend has it that it is the strongest and most magical metal on Earth. Alex didn't have time to reply. He just nodded and continued to search the directory. Finally, in the 17th entry, Alex found information about vibranium in the Savage Lands. Vibranium did exist in the Savage Lands, and the reserves were considerable. The only problem was the location of the vibranium mines in the Savage Land. They weren't in the swamp forest, but rather on the plains occupied by the self-proclaimed descendants of Atlantis. Where is it? Within the entry was a map, with a prominent sign telling Emma the location of the vibranium mines. This is troublesome. It is a bit troublesome, Alex frowned. The vibranium mines couldn't be abandoned, not to mention the aliens' manufacturing formula. The first 16 entries for vibranium all contain such formulas. If all else fails, we'll just conquer them. Emma smiled wryly and shook her head, helplessly saying, we don't need to conquer them. In fact, they're already coming to our door. What? Coming to our door? Alex looked at Emma in disbelief. Emma nodded and explained, I came here hoping to find something to stop their invasion, then let's fight. We have the men and the guns, so why should we be afraid of them? Alex wasn't afraid at all. He hadn't had time to deal with them before, but now they'd come knocking on his door, and with the vibranium mines at his fingertips, conquering them wouldn't be a burden at all. Don't underestimate them. They're not weak, Emma said seriously, shaking her head. And we just got out of a war, and now we're back in it again. I'm afraid. As she spoke, Emma occasionally glanced at Cooper, her beautiful face filled with maternal affection. Alex suddenly understood after hearing this, and was silent for a while before asking, what are your plans? If we can avoid fighting, then we won't, Emma said in a deep voice with a solemn face. The most important thing is that their coming this time is a little strange. Alex looked at Emma with a strange face, and seeing her frown slightly, he couldn't help but ask, what's strange? They claim to be descendants of Atlantis, with vast plains and advanced civilization, and they disdain to get entangled with the uncivilized savages here. In the past, it was mostly orcs who invaded them. Emma took a breath and continued, but this time, they took the initiative to attack, which is very strange. Maybe they want something, Alex said uncertainly, but even he himself was very skeptical about this reason. The true treasures of the Savage Lands weren't already occupied by the descendants of Atlantis. The swamps and forests of the savages truly held nothing worthy of their covetousness. Otherwise, with their technological prowess, they would have conquered the entire Savage Lands long ago. After much deliberation, Alex shook his head, feeling irritated. Forget it. I'll just go find their leader and search them, and everything will be clear. That's exactly what I was thinking, Emma chuckled, turning to look at Cooper and whispering, Cooper, you stay here and continue sorting through the information inside. It's very important to us. Cooper, naturally, had no objection to Emma's words. He nodded, closed his eyes, and turned back to his work, his face etched with seriousness. Bidding farewell to Emma, Alex once again left the floating temple and teleported to the other side of the Savage Lands. This was a land he had never set foot on, a world belonging to the descendants of Atlantis. Alex was deeply curious about what kind of world this would be. Alex is more curious about why they started the war. Everything is fine, everything is back to spring. Today I will start with a chapter to warm up, tomorrow I will resume normal updates, and try to make up for it with 3 chapters. Chapter 122 Change of Ownership. In reality, the question of whether to fight or not wasn't the biggest issue for Alex. He was more worried about being exposed. If Hydra learned of their situation, the future would be turbulent. In the floating temple, after hearing Alex's words, Emma said firmly, we must fight. We can't give up here. Giving up is definitely not an option. Alex nodded, a bitter look on his face. The key is how do we drive them away? After a moment's silence, Alex continued, also, we have to completely dispel Hydra's intentions, or else something like this will happen again. We can't show up. Emma's face grew serious. Hydra must have heard about you rescuing people out there. I'm afraid they'll notice us the moment we show up. Alex was concerned. I'm afraid we can't rely on the savages alone. Alex had seen the equipment of the Atlantean descendants and knew that the savages' fighting power was no match for them. It was like the difference between modern men with guns and primitive people with sticks. Aren't there still dinosaurs? Emma snapped her fingers, thinking back to their encounter in the forest. Besides, some orcs are quite formidable, like the pterosaurs. Alex shrugged, shaking his head like a rattle. They're certainly formidable, but unfortunately, we can't control them. Alex, don't underestimate mutants. Emma smiled mysteriously, her beautiful eyes filled with pride. We have 500,000 mutants, a force comparable to that of gods. Is that really that exaggerated? Alex looked at Emma skeptically, not believing her. Alex knew mutants were powerful, but that was only a small minority. The vast majority of mutants had no real combat potential. Emma, as if she could see right through Alex, glared at him disapprovingly. Alex softly explained, "Mutants have all sorts of abilities. Some don't seem very powerful, but when used in the right way, they can be incredibly powerful." Just like Cooper, Alex instantly remembered the little boy helping out in the archives, and suddenly a realization dawned on him. He turned to Emma and smiled. "Okay, I'll leave this to you, hey." Without giving Emma a chance to continue, Alex kissed her hard on the lips. As they engaged, Emma completely forgot what she wanted to say, closing her eyes and losing herself in the moment. After a long moment, Alex finally released Emma from his embrace, looking at her with a look of deep emotion. "It's my life's blessing to have your help." Emma stared at Alex with starry eyes, a blush rising to her cheeks. "It's my duty, thank you, Emma." Alex pecked Emma's rosy cheek, saying only one word before disappearing. Emma was momentarily stunned by the emptiness before her. After a moment, she sighed, turned, and walked out of the floating temple, beginning to make arrangements for the next battle. In Stark Industries' secret laboratory in New York, Alex found Howard again. "Did they come to see you?" Howard looked up at Alex with a strange smile and said, "Yes." "You know how they reacted?" "Happy?" Alex asked expectantly. No. Howard shook his raised index finger, his smile growing even more peculiar. "They were very angry, very angry." Alex, increasingly confused, asked, "Angry? Why?" "Go find them yourself." Howard didn't want to talk anymore. He lowered his head and focused on his experiment. No matter how Alex pestered him, he remained silent, which made Alex flustered. After a moment of hesitation, Alex finally gave up on looking for them. Just knowing they had come to see Howard was reassuring. After all, he had more important things to do. After leaving Howard's secret laboratory, Alex teleported to the director's office of SHIELD unexpectedly. The office was empty, and Nick Fury, who almost lived there, was nowhere to be seen. Turning his head and looking at the closed door, Alex hesitated. Although the war between humans and mutants was over, if he appeared in front of the SHIELD agents so openly, it would have a bad impact. Alex had no choice but to wait in the office. This wait lasted for a long time. Alex took out and smoked all three of Nick Fury's treasured Churchill cigars, but Nick Fury never came back. Did something happen? Alex stood up from his chair, thought about it and decided to leave. He was already in Japan on the other side of the ocean when he appeared again. Alex immediately thought of Hydra because he could not get any news from SHIELD. Alex glanced at Strucker and Red Skull on the field, without any discomfort, and asked directly, "Did something happen again?" "What?" Strucker was slightly stunned, looking at Alex with a puzzled expression. Beside him, the imitation Red Skull was also surprised. Alex paused for a moment, then changed the subject. "What big thing has happened recently? Tell me about it." "Big thing?" Strucker finally realized, and said thoughtfully, "The Hellfire Club changed hands." "Is that a big deal? The Hellfire Club changed hands? Shouldn't it be destroyed?" Alex turned suddenly, looking at Strucker with an expression of disbelief. In Alex's view, Sebastian Shaw was already his prisoner, and many of the Hellfire Club's top leaders had been killed or captured by him. The Hellfire Club should have been destroyed. Stark chuckled, shook his head, and said slowly, "The Hellfire Club has been passed down for thousands of years. How could it be destroyed so easily? Tell me more about it." Alex's face looked a little grim, and his brows furrowed. He realized that he had underestimated the Hellfire Club. A force that has been passed down for thousands of years must have a very deep foundation. "I'm afraid Sebastian Shaw's influence is only a small part of it. After Sebastian Shaw came to power, the power of mutants in the Hellfire Club increased dramatically, and they controlled almost all the power in Hellfire." Stark slowly walked to the long table, picked up a cigar, took a deep puff, and lit it. "It's a pity that after a meaningless war, Sebastian Shaw disappeared, and the forces under his command collapsed. I know all this." Alex frowned slightly, and said impatiently. Strucker's lips curled up slightly, and he glanced at the Red Skull imitation beside him. With a faint smile, he continued, "Sebastian Shaw is missing, but the Hellfire Club is still there. Mutants have lost power, and humans have risen." "Who?" Alex felt a sudden sense of unease upon hearing Strucker's words. He thought of Stephen Lang, who had died at his hands. As if seeing through Alex's concerns, Strucker slowly said, "Edward Bookman, an anti-mutant cultist with a deep hatred for mutants." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Before the War. Alex left Hydra headquarters in a daze, Stark's words echoing in his mind, his face pale as a sheet. Standing on the streets of Japan, Alex's mind raced, a simmering fire rising. Filled with rage, Alex immediately returned to the wilderness and confronted Sebastian Shaw. Sebastian Shaw, look at what you've done. Sebastian Shaw leaned weakly against the wall of the observation room, his eyes slightly closed. He turned his head at the sound, a cold smile on his increasingly thin face. How dare you smile? Alex's rage burned, and he wished he could kill him right then and there. Sebastian Shaw slowly stood up, holding onto the wall. He said calmly, humans and mutants cannot coexist equally, you knew? Alex was surprised. He hadn't said it, but Sebastian Shaw seemed to have known it all along. Edward Bookman is a very ambitious man. As soon as I leave, the Hellfire Club will surely fall into his hands, Sebastian Shaw said confidently, his eyes twitching slightly with a hint of sinister intent. You know, he's been plotting to wipe out all mutants. Alex fell silent. Turning to look at Alex, Sebastian Shaw snorted and asked mockingly, what are you going to do next? Kill him, or take all the mutants here and hide them? Alex looked up at Sebastian Shaw, speechless. When he first received the news, Alex had considered killing Edward Bookman. But then, Alex thought of Stephen Lang, who had died at his hands before. From Stephen Lang to Edward Bookman, there would surely be many more like them in the future. Was he going to keep killing them? Kill the humans and let the mutants rule the world? Sebastian Shaw raised his head proudly, a tremendous strength erupting from his frail body. Only in this way can we change the situation of mutants. Hiding is useless. Alex began to speak, but Sebastian Shaw interrupted him bluntly. The world is so small. No matter how hidden a place is, humans will eventually find it. Alex fell silent again, unsure how to respond to Sebastian Shaw. For the first time, Alex doubted his own unrealistic ideas. Alex, why are you here? Just as Alex was feeling anxious, Emma suddenly appeared, followed by a group of people, men, women, young and old. Alex was startled, and when he came to his senses, he looked at Emma and the group behind her and asked in surprise, what are you doing? With the news about Edward Bookman, Alex decided to have a private conversation with Emma. Come and borrow some people from them. Emma chuckled and pointed to the observation rooms around her. We are a little short of manpower. Alex finally remembered the crisis he was about to face, temporarily put aside his worries, and asked, do you need my help? That's exactly what I need. Emma reached out and pulled Alex up, walked quickly to the middle of the rows of observation rooms, and stopped outside an observation room with ease. Sage? Telepathy. Looking at the woman in the observation room, Alex turned to look at Emma in some surprise. Emma, what do you want to do? In order to control those savages and dinosaurs, we need more telepaths. Emma shrugged, her bright eyes dimmed slightly. There are too few mutants with telepathy. Alex suddenly realized, frowned slightly, and asked uncertainly, now, how many savages and dinosaurs have been gathered? We have captured a lot of people, and we are trying to control them. Time is in a hurry, and Emma can only resort to such rough means. I haven't counted the number carefully, but I estimate it to be tens of thousands. That's enough people. Recalling the camp we saw that day, Alex had an accurate number in his mind. There were not many people in the army of the descendants of Atlantis. 10,000 savages and dinosaurs is enough. 10,000 is the limit. Any more and there's really no way to control it. Emma smiled wryly and shook her head, gesturing to the now awakened sage. Now, help me take care of her. Alex looked at Emma, puzzled. How? Her psychic power is comparable to mine. I can't alter her will to make her help us. Emma patted Alex's shoulder, a look of pride on her face. But if you add me, it'll be possible. That's even possible. Alex hadn't known Emma had such an ability. Emma tossed her head slightly, her long blonde hair swirling like a golden glow. We've just developed this recently. It lasts longer than direct control, but it requires more psychic power. Another advantage is that it doesn't require constant psychic control. As Alex listened, an idea suddenly struck him. He excitedly grabbed Emma's arm. Is it possible to modify her personality and thoughts? If Edward Bookman's hatred of mutants could be changed, then everything would be a problem. Emma frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, shook her head, and said slowly, "Change is impossible, only influence. Furthermore, the effect will fluctuate, depending on the individual." As she spoke, Emma paused, glanced sideways at Alex, and keenly sensed something. Did something happen? Alex shook his head without explaining, instead pointing to the sage in the observation room. "Let's deal with her first." Emma, though somewhat perplexed, didn't press the issue. She was already incredibly busy with the Atlantean Descendants army and had no time to worry about anything else. Alex's psychic power was astonishingly powerful. With his help, Emma easily altered the sage's will, turning her into her ally. Looking at the sage, who meekly followed Emma, Alex couldn't help but ask, "Emma, how long does this usually last? A day or two?" Sage's psychic powers are quite strong, so there will be some impact. Alex was disappointed. The duration was too short. Even if used on an ordinary person, it would only last a month or two at most, which wouldn't be very effective. When Alex and Emma left the observation area, quite a few people were already standing outside. In addition to the people who had followed Emma at first, there were also a group of mutants from the Hellfire Club, including Eric. Emma immediately saw the confusion in Alex's eyes and began to explain, her face full of resignation. "There are so few telepaths, so we have to use other methods to make up for it." Alex soon witnessed the other methods Emma mentioned, which were extremely clever. For example, Emma had a group of people dressed in full-body metal armor, so that Eric could control them through the armor, thus indirectly controlling them. The results were very good, comparable to telepathy, but with a slight lag. Finally, a mixed army of 10,000 savages and dinosaurs was formed, followed by a group of mutants, most of whom were controllers, with some being illusionists, invisibility, and the like, who needed to hide the controllers. The army assembled, and the battle horn sounded. Chapter 124 Silver Pewter Spearhead. With her army assembled, Emma wasted no time in engaging the enemy. The 10,000 beastmen were stationed in the forest outside the lake where the floating temple stood, still some distance from the outer plains. Marching in the forest wasn't like marching on the plains, where dense or sparse trees would occasionally obstruct the path. Fortunately, the army consisted of savages accustomed to the forest, so their speed wasn't slow, though their ranks were much more disorganized and lacked any discipline. Slowly advancing, the 10,000-man army finally emerged from the forest. The Atlantean descendants on the plains remained completely unmoved, a truly astonishing sight. Emma, stunned by the sudden panic in the opposing camp, turned to Alex and asked in disbelief, "Are they all blind and deaf?" Alex smiled wryly and shook his head, speechless. "Let's practice courtesy first, then force. This battle could be avoided if possible." That was Emma's bottom line. As she spoke, Emma, commanding a tall ape-man covered in bright green hair, leaped out of the battle formation and landed a few steps in front of the Atlantean camp. He pounded his chest and roared, then declared, "Let your leader speak." After a commotion lasting nearly half an hour, the opposing army finally assembled, their weapons ready. Only then did the Atlantean general, disguised as a Hydra agent, hurried out, surrounded by a crowd. The fake general, anxious, tried several times to leave the crowd, but was repeatedly stopped. The security was so tight that he felt hesitant. "This is Hydra." Alex, sharp-eyed, immediately spotted the fake general, trapped behind the army. Turning to Emma, he spoke, "Don't worry about the others, it doesn't matter. We must get rid of him." "I have a plan." Emma nodded, already having a plan in mind. She then controlled the ape-man to speak again. "We didn't attack you, yet you dare attack us." His intoxicating bandit logic perfectly suited the ape-man's character. The ape-man's words drew a chorus of nods from the Atlantean descendants, their wholehearted agreement with his banditry. The Hydra agent in the center of the crowd was practically vomiting blood in anger. Pushing aside the crowd in front of him, the fake general sprinted a few steps to the front of the army. Facing the ape-man, he thundered, "You savages, you've seized the temple. Today we're here to reclaim it." This high-sounding excuse was Hydra's pretext for inciting the Atlantean descendants to launch their army, though of course, there were also some dirty tricks hidden behind the scenes. "It's all about the temple." Emma snorted softly, and the ape-man under his control immediately went berserk, roaring and charging at the fake general. Then, something unexpected happened. The fake general was indeed imposing, swiveling and charging forward, but the army behind him actually scattered and fled. Fleeing. What the hell is going on? Alex was dumbfounded, unable to believe his eyes. A single ape man had scared off the entire opposing army. He wasn't the Hulk. Not only was Alex dazed, but Emma was also momentarily stunned, forgetting to control the ape man. The uncontrolled ape man froze like a robot without power, and was easily kicked to the ground by the fake general. The fake general was smug and was about to deliver an impassioned speech to inspire his troops, but when he turned, he saw only the panicked backs of a group of Atlantean descendants. Their discarded weapons scattered all over the ground. The fake general was stunned on the spot and was stunned for a long time. The Hydra agent, who had been furious at the cowardly and idle style of the descendants of Atlantis for several days, finally erupted at this moment, spitting out a mouthful of blood and falling to the ground. "What's that?" Emma felt her brain whirring. She turned to Alex beside her. "We won." Alex hadn't imagined that such a dangerous war would end up like this. Looking at the fake general lying beside the ape man, then at the Atlantean army running for their lives, wishing they had more legs, he said uncertainly, "We should have won, but our men haven't moved yet." Emma exasperated, scratching her head in frustration, her blonde hair tangled. "Besides, my plan hasn't been implemented yet, and the Hydra hasn't been defeated yet." Alex pointed at the fake general lying on the ground and said hesitantly, "I hope he's still alive." And just like that, Emma, without even a single soldier, had slaughtered the Atlantean descendants, sending them fleeing in defeat. It was arguably the most iconic battle in the history of the Savage Lands, bar none. A great war, ended with such a shocking outcome. Emma's plan failed, but fortunately, she still had the fake general in her hands, so she could do something about it. After an unknown amount of time, the Hydra agent woke up. He was tied to a wooden stake, surrounded by bright bonfires, and all kinds of savages with strange looks, including apes who fought in broad daylight and flying pterosaurs. In the distance, a white building resembling the Greek Parthenon stood tall. Outside the temple, savages knelt, worshipping devoutly, and mysterious and ancient music echoed in their ears. The descendants of Atlantis inherited alien technology and Atlantean civilization, but they didn't care much about the temple. Only oral legends were left, and there was no information about what the temple looked like. Upon first sight of the temple, the Hydra agent instinctively exclaimed, "Is this the temple?" By the time the Hydra agent fell into Emma's long-prepared trap, Emma had already followed Alex, pursuing the fleeing Atlantean army, and arrived at a vast city. Its towering walls, like mountains, were a formidable sight. Such high walls must be used to repel the barbarians. The barbarians were still in the age of cold weapons, and high walls were the best defense against them. Coupled with their powerful weapons, this city would surely remain undefeated. Hearing Alex's words, Emma nodded, her heart growing even stronger. "Let's go in and take a look. I want to see what their plan is." Emma had always harbored doubts about the Atlanteans' retreat. After setting the Hydra agent's trap, she dragged Alex after them, determined to find out the truth. Half a day later, the two came out with very strange expressions on their faces, half smiles, as if they were constantly tense. "Well, I overestimated their abilities." Emma finally couldn't help it and waved her hand in disgust. "There are actually people like them in this world. It's a miracle that they can survive to this day." Alex couldn't help laughing when he heard this. He shook his head and said, "Have you forgotten Italy in World War II? Emma was stunned for a moment, nodded and said affirmatively, "Well, they are all responsible for the funny things, thanks to Death right hand for the reward." Chapter 125. Nothing to say. Back at the floating temple, Emma received word that the Hydra agent had escaped as planned. If everything went as planned, Hydra would likely abandon its ambitions for the temple. "Well, Hydra's problem is solved," Emma said, waving the intruder away. She turned to Alex. "Now, tell me about your problem." Alex didn't hesitate, explaining, "The Hellfire Club has reappeared, and now the leader is Edward Bookman, an anti-mutant zealot with a deep hatred for mutants." Emma covered her mouth in surprise, stunned for a long moment before releasing her hand. She smiled wryly and shook her head, saying, "We should have seen this coming." From the beginning, Alex and her plan had been to seize control of the Hellfire Club through Sebastian Shaw. However, a series of subsequent events thwarted the plan, forcing them to flee into the wilderness with the mutants. "What should we do now?" Alex tactfully threw the matter to Emma. In his previous life, he was just an angry young man in a homebody. After struggling in this life, he has grown a lot. But who can blame him for being lazy? He doesn't want to use his brain for anything, so he simply leaves it all to Emma, a smart woman. Emma didn't answer immediately. She crossed her arms over her chest, paced back and forth with her head down, and after a while she stopped and looked up at Alex. "This matter depends on you." Seeing Alex's confused face, Emma explained, "The key is to look at your attitude. Different ideas have different ways of dealing with them. Tell me everything." Alex remembered Sebastian Shaw's words and looked at Emma with some suspicion. Emma glanced at Wang Xia strangely, nodded, and said, "If you advocate war, then there's nothing to say. Just start fighting, like Sebastian Shaw did. Of course, we don't have to be so radical. We can take it step by step, starting with at Edward Bookman." As she spoke, Emma kept observing Alex. Seeing that Alex was unmoved, she breathed a sigh of relief and continued, "But I don't recommend going down that path." "Why?" Alex disliked Sebastian Shaw's approach from the bottom of his heart. After hearing what Emma said, she was a little curious about her reasons. Emma shrugged and said bitterly, "Earth belongs to humans, and that won't change for at least hundreds of years. Mutants will always be a minority, and it will be very difficult for them to control the world. What about those who advocate peace?" Alex nodded, agreeing very much with Emma's words. "Mutants have never been the mainstream of the world. This is a bit troublesome." Emma frowned slightly, and her tone became serious. "In fact, I agree with what Sebastian Shaw said. Mutants and humans can never coexist peacefully." "Why?" Alex once again remembered the sneer on Sebastian Shaw's face when he said this in the observation room. "Although I don't want to admit it, the fact is that we are no longer the same race as ordinary humans." The expression on Emma's face changed again, with a casual yet helpless look. "Living together on Earth, conflicts between different races are inevitable, just like the descendants of Atlantis and the savages, the forest savages and the swamp savages in the wilderness. We are the masters of the future, and humans have been eliminated." Listening to Emma's words, Alex suddenly thought of the conversation between the old Magneto and Professor X in the movie. Are mutants the future direction of human evolution? Emma was stunned for a long time after hearing this, nodded and said, "Maybe, but it will take a long time, and there will be competition between the two sides, survival of the fittest, and who will be left in the end as us or humans. No one can say for sure." The scenes of X-Men Days of Future Past in his previous life kept appearing in Alex's mind. According to the story of the movie, it is humans, not mutants, who will be left in the end. Emma, unaware of Alex's thoughts, continued, "Actually, the best solution is to hide from humans, just like we are now. Hiding in the wilderness, away from humans. There's naturally no competition, but we can't hide like this forever, can we? Hiding is never the best way to deal with things. Besides, the savage lands have been discovered by Hydra. It's only a matter of time before we're exposed. Then, where can we hide? If Earth isn't an option, then hide on another planet. The universe is so vast, there's always a place to hide." After encountering the alien relics left in the savage lands, Emma's sights were no longer limited to Earth. Alex was startled by this. Hide on another planet? That's a bit far. Not far. Emma shook her head, her face serious. "As you said, Hydra has discovered the savage lands. It's only a matter of time before we're exposed. We must find another place to hide as soon as possible. Isn't there any other way? Interstellar migration is no easy task." In Alex's opinion, it's even more difficult than mutants overthrowing the humans. "Yes, what's the solution? Besides the ubiquitous competitive relationships in nature, there's also a symbiotic relationship." Emma, ignoring Alex's excited gaze, explained calmly, "Symbiotic relationships are interspecies relationships where two organisms mutually benefit from each other. Neither can survive without the other. If they separate, neither can survive." Alex's excitement grew, like a treasure hunter who had found his treasure. His eyes lit up like bright lights. Alex felt he had found hope, evidence to support his long-held belief. Emma, however, was not pleased at all. She said dejectedly, "From the moment mutants appeared, they were destined to compete with humans. Transforming a competitive relationship into a symbiotic one is incredibly difficult. No matter how difficult it is, there's still hope." Alex's spirits perked up. He felt that of all the solutions Emma had proposed, this was the most reliable. A symbiotic relationship, to put it bluntly, is a mutually beneficial cooperation. Yeah, right? If humans and us coexist peacefully, we all benefit. If we fight, we all lose. Isn't that the case? Alex said somewhat whimsically. Emma rolled her eyes and said unhappily, "According to nature, to humans, we are actually invaders and attackers. It would be strange if they could coexist peacefully with us." Alex was confused. How could mutants be invaders? He was about to speak, But Emma interrupted him with a wave of her hand. The impression mutants leave on humans right now is only filled with malicious words like horror, weirdness, and fear, Emma said quickly, not allowing Alex to continue. And mutants' feelings toward humans are mostly hatred and arrogance. Don't rush to defend yourself. Few mutants can escape these two emotions, some are stronger than others, so, the conflict between humans and mutants is irreconcilable, Emma concluded. That's why I've always said that mutants and humans can never coexist peacefully. Alex paused, then suddenly came to his senses, feeling very unhappy. You've been talking for so long, and you haven't said anything. Indeed, Emma had been talking about theories and evidence, without a single concrete, effective solution. Because there's nothing to say, Alex subconsciously asked, what about Edward Bookman? Either kill him or do nothing. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.